Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to West Lincoln Council. This is our 8th meeting, Monday, June 26, 2023. Please stand for the playing and recorded singing of O Canada by the Smithville Christian High School. Well, you see it? Okay, we've lost the sound.
We'll get it.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, after a bit of technical problem, it always sounds good to hear that choir sing our national anthem. I was to announce that Councillor Bell would be absent tonight, but we are awaiting him on Zoom, and hopefully after an illness, he will join us tonight for that. If not, then we'll understand. So comments from the public for a matter that is on the agenda may be provided in person by attending the meeting and advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of the agenda. For those individuals that are unable to attend this meeting or any meeting, you may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda by either 1, emailing jdyson@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and read into the public record, or by contacting the Clerk's Department to request a Zoom link to attend the meeting virtually. This meeting will be live streamed. The link to watch the meeting live can be found on the Township's website by selecting the Township Office tab at the top of the website, then clicking the Council or Standing Committee Meetings tab and scrolling down the meeting list to find the link. This meeting will be recorded and will be available for viewing by clicking the meeting video link found on the Township's website within 48 hours after the meeting, unless otherwise noted. And we'll start our meeting this evening with the Land Acknowledgement Statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Endurong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. And Councillor Trombetta, you have the opening petition for this evening, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and the pitfall of each matter that is placed before us, and we always act in accordance with what's best in our community and for our fellow citizens.
Thank you, Councillor. So under the change in orders of item on the agenda, we have two very important appointments this evening. And so those presentations are listed under item 7. So under 7.1, there's a reference made to report RFD-CAO-02-2023, which refers to our corporate strategic plan. So unless there are some really strong objections, I guess is the word I'm looking for, from council members to this, I'm planning to move that item, which is listed as 15.1, to follow directly after the presentation from our guest, who's doing the first presentation. And then the second item, of course, will be, that information will follow right after the second speaker. It seemed to make more sense to put those two things together. So we don't, if everybody thinks that that's okay.
That's fine with me.
It's been listed already in the agenda. We checked with the clerk and made sure we didn't need a motion for that, but...
But Madam Mayor, I did want to mention, Councilor Bell has reached out to me to say he's having some technical difficulties logging on with the Zoom link that was sent to him.
Thank you
So
for
just
that.
to keep you
Okay, so our
informed.
CAO will try to help with that. So thank you for that, Councillor Riley. Okay, so if we're fine with that, then we will proceed. So I next will ask then if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest from anyone in council. Okay, and seeing none. Under request to address items on the agenda, please note that requests to address items on the agenda are restricted to specific items as follow per section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw. And public comment, that's 6.7, states that there shall be no comments from the public permitted at council unless a specific appointment has been scheduled or an item is included under the other business or communications or appointments section of the agenda and relates to a matter which would normally be dealt with at committee. So I'll go first to our IT help desk analyst to ask if he is aware if there are any members of the public who are in attendance virtually on the Zoom meeting call who wish to address an item specifically on tonight's agenda.
Not seeing any, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And I'll go next to our Director of Legislative Services or Clerk. Have you received any emails or correspondence from a member of the public prior to 4:30 today requesting?
I have not, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And finally, is there anyone present at this evening's meeting who wishes to address a specific item on tonight's council agenda as permitted under 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? And I don't see anyone other than our guests who we already know have come to speak to us tonight. So that does take us then to appointments and presentations. And so 7.1 is Suzanne Gibson. Suzanne is a consultant with Suzanne Gibson and Associates, and she has a PowerPoint presentation regarding the work that we've been doing together on our corporate strategic plan. So Suzanne, welcome. We're glad to see you in person. It's been a while. I know you've had Zoom calls with others, but always nice to have you. Thank you.
Is it on? Okay. I'm going to let you just get in.
We'll get some help from Kevin to get things running for you.
Thanks.
So perhaps members of council, just while they're getting that set up, I will say that just remind you that one of the things that we did cut during the budgetary process was having a formal plan put together. So before Suzanne even gets started, I want to acknowledge the work that she has additionally put into this, along with our CAO, Bev Hendry, and our person who deals mostly with our communications, Beth Audette. They have become the people who took all of those notes and big lists and things that we all put together when we had our sessions and have put it into this finalized version. So I do thank them for that work, that it sort of put additional work on their shoulders because of our concerns for finances. So, Suzanne, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, please go ahead. Thank you.
So I want to start by thanking you for inviting me here today, and I want to say that every time I drive into this township, I'm struck by the beauty of this beautiful space, and I'm very struck by the importance of your leadership in terms of safeguarding and making good decisions for the community. And so I always feel like a corporate strategic plan is a great way to begin because it allows you to come together and collectively create a vision of what's important to you based on what you've heard from community members about what's important to them, about having a whole, vibrant, inclusive, beautiful community. And you've done such a great job of that over the years. So I just wanted to start by saying to you, and I'm going to put up our first slide, which is a summation of the 4 priorities. And this is, in fact, your plan. We spend a lot of time in rooms, 3 days in a row, close to in a row, looking at all of your ideas, your thoughts that you generated, and trying to synthesize them down into something that would articulate where you want to be over the next 4 years. This is a living document, and I want to make the point that good strategic plans guide your work, they shape your work, and they inform your work, but that doesn't preclude new things arising. And I think we've all learned in the last couple of years, things arise that we have to respond to, but with the plan then you can go back and look at what you've got in motion and reprioritize given your resources and your capacity. So this is intended to be an adaptable living document that you work with over the next 4 years, and it will allow you to stay focused on the big picture and to really stay the course on the things that you've articulated as being important to you. So you'll see 4 strategic priorities, and the first is really about the community that we live in and building a really safe, connected, caring, active community where residents are engaged and there's a strong sense of home and belonging. The second is around growth, and we spend a lot of time in our 2 sessions talking about growth, so the idea that it be strategic and incremental and really respond to the needs of the community while safeguarding the environment and our beautiful agricultural assets. And the third is a new pillar, which is around enriching the very strong agricultural legacy that you have had and continue to have. And there was a lot of discussion from council around wanting to do some strategic things in that arena. At the base of this graphic is a priority that's more about, it's a foundational priority about what are the things that we collectively need to do to build our capacity so we have the ability to meet the goals we set out. So I'd like to just walk you through the various pieces of the plan. And I thought I would remind you of the process. So we started in February with an online survey that was sent out to the public, and over 90 participants responded to that survey. There was a wonderful video that was put out to talk about the importance of strategic planning, and the actual survey was on many, many online social media tools and promoted on the website, sent out to people virtually, but there was also an opportunity to do a physical one in the community centers and in a variety of spaces and places across the township. So that was one piece that we did. I had the great pleasure of speaking to 16 community members in distinct places across the community that represent what one might describe different sectors that represent all the things we want in a community. So we talked to business leaders, we talked to farmers, we talked to social service leaders, we talked to folks that have really great intel and can provide good advice. And that was a very useful exercise and provided a diversity of perspective. And then I interviewed each and every one of the council members and every member of the senior management team and secured strategic input. And in that case, I would describe those interviews as being more operationally grounded because you all have experience, many of you have experience with what's been going on over the last 4 years and then envisioning the next 4. So a report was submitted to you that summarized all the findings, and in addition to a public survey report that summarized the findings from the over 90+ individuals. And then we had our first training workshop. And that was a really dynamic day where in the evening we all met and you started to talk about the world we live in and what's happening, where there are opportunities in the community, where you saw new possibilities, and you generated a whole series of ideas, which I would actually call strategic responses or initiatives that will empower this community to be stronger. And they all went up on the wall and we looked at them and we did some reflection on them. Then we came back shortly thereafter, about 4 or 5 days later, and refined those priorities and brought them down to we actually did some democracy in voting and then refined them and brought them down to a clear articulation of what council thought was most important. And then the writing began, and I want to point out there was a small crew of us, but we polled on every single senior manager in the team, and they provided incredible insight and advice and really grounded our discussions around what was viable. Because one of the things I did hear council say is, please come back with an achievable plan. Please make it something that we can all collectively achieve together. So that was wonderful. So that was the process. And what we did actually in the second day is we reviewed your vision statement, your mission statement, and your value statements to see if you as a group felt they needed updating. And we got clear direction from council, yes, please update those statements, make them cleaner and crisper was the general feedback, and we agreed we'd come back with some options. So we've narrowed down for the vision statements and the mission statements, which I'll present to you, 2 options, and we made a few very small changes to the values. So the vision, you'll see there are 2 options for your review tonight. The Township of West Lincoln will be a safe, engaged, and vibrant community that fosters connections, opportunities, and a strong sense of home. And the other one is fostering a strong sense of community. West Lincoln celebrates its rural and agricultural roots while promoting sustainable growth that increases opportunities for all. So those will be before you tonight to look at. And that is your aspirational statement of what you're aiming to achieve going forward. Your mission statement, there are again 2 we were able to narrow down. And the first is the Township of West Lincoln provides responsive municipal services that enhance the quality of life in our community. And the second one for your consideration is through efficient and effective leadership, the Township of West Lincoln provides quality services and opportunities for engagement to enhance the quality of life in our community. And then to take you to the values, we all looked at the values and you gave us feedback. There was a request that a 5th value on inclusion or inclusivity be added. So you'll see the 5th value is a totally new value. And the service value and the respect value were slightly modified and updated with different verbs and a slightly different approach based on feedback from council. So those are before you. And I'll just give you a minute. I think you've all read them, but I'll give you just a quick minute to eyeball them. I will not read them to you. So those will guide the corporation's approach to its work. And it really is sort of a series of philosophies and principles that guide how we do our work going forward. So there are 3, I would argue, there are 3 priorities that are really community facing, and then there's the foundational one. So the first one that's community facing is the one that is about a safe, connected, caring, and active community. And so this piece is really an articulation around, and we heard this loud and clear from you all, a strong, safe, and active transportation connected community. Let's make sure that we have safe passage. Let's make sure that we have our we're pushing and advocating for the escarpment crossing. We're pushing and advocating for a truck bypass. Those were really important. We also heard loud and clear, roads, ongoing maintenance of roads is really, really important in terms of safe road conditions and safety for residents. And then there was a broader discussion also around different approaches to transit, including community walkability and traffic calming strategies, things that allow people to move around and access everything they need. So that's one piece of this particular priority. And then the second piece is really an issue around safety and well-being. So in this bundle, you talked a lot about fire and emergency services and the need to make sure we grow those services with equipment and training and safety mechanisms. As the community grows, those things need to be met legislatively. And increased police presence was also a piece that people felt, as we grow, let's make sure we're advocating for that. And improved health care access was another very important piece, and certainly a challenge across all Ontario municipalities and townships right now. The other piece on day 1 of our meeting was a lot of discussion around recreational programming and utilizing those great community assets you already have, but really getting more recreational programming across a breadth of age groups, across a breadth of community residents. So making sure from young to old, we have a whole medley of really inspiring and engaging recreational programming and better use of parklands and playgrounds. And then the other piece, there are 2 other pieces that came up under this one, was let's create more welcoming and inclusive space. Let's have more community gatherings. Could we have a big community event or a couple of them where people come together and they really connect? And I think there was a feeling following the pandemic that everyone's felt isolated and we want to get out there and really meet and greet our neighbors, create a sense of home and belonging. And then the very last piece, which is more out of the control of the municipality in that you don't provide these services, but you have a unique role to lobby and advocate for them. And they're essential to a whole community. And there are things like childcare was a top priority, long-term care for seniors, and then the whole medley of other social services that will be required, especially as you grow and your population expands. Making sure you have those things in place will be really important. So you will see that there are a series of strategies that were documented, and these 7 strategies embody all the things that you put up on the wall. So the whole piece around implementing the Transportation Master Plan, making sure that we support safe, efficient, and strong transportation connections, working with Niagara Regional Transit Commission to make sure we have good transit options from within the township, beginning to develop and to begin a Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan that really looks at the holistic assets you have and maps out a bigger vision and plan for that work. Providing fire and emergency services and public works and recreation operations with the resources needed to match growth. And then all the things that are required to ensure community safety around effective emergency planning and working to really expand healthcare options. And then this last piece around the community programming and getting more activities where people are interconnecting and gathering and having fun. And the last piece is really very focused lobbying and advocacy. So you'll see in Appendix B of the materials that were sent out to you, we sat down as a senior management team and talked about, okay, if these are the strategies, then what are we delivering? So you'll see a series of deliverables in Appendix B, and there's 16 of them. And I don't want to really read them all to you, but I do want to say that for each strategy, there's a direct deliverable that holds an accountability around have we actually delivered on this particular strategy. So around transportation, have we been able to move the needle on our escarpment crossing and truck bypass around Smithville lobbying? Have we kept up with kept our pavement management system? Is it in pace with what is needed? Is it meeting the needs of the community? Have we increased our road safety? So these are all a series of actual deliverables you'll see, including working with NRT On Demand to get inter and intra on-demand transit services, the Parks and Recreation Facilities plans. So we aimed in doing this to be very concrete. So this can be a measurable plan, and you can look to see, aha, you said you'd do that, let's see where you are on that. And that senior management team felt that was really important. So you'll see a series of items, including working with a regional physician recruitment specialist to start to mobilize stronger relationships and synergies so we have more physicians in medical care in the township. Recreational programming. The West Lincoln Public Library will be doing a strategic plan to increase its reach, so that's part of expanding services. And then things that include Welland Street Master Plan, our beautiful rural community centers, which I had the pleasure of being in, working on those as well. Rehabbing St. Anne's, the road rehabilitation, and then some very concrete ideas around events and building capacity so we can have more community gatherings, and a community recognition plan that really celebrates the contributions residents make to the community. So those are the deliverables that are there for that one. So that is the first priority. And the second priority is really there was quite a lot of discussion about responsible growth. We know there's going to be growth in the region, and West Lincoln will have, when you look at the demographics, there's expected to be quite a bit of growth. So there's a real commitment to, from council, and what I heard loud and clear was, let's really protect our natural assets as we grow. Let's make sure that we do it incrementally, we do it strategically, and we protect both our rural and our agricultural assets and this incredible rich nature and ecosystem that we have. And let's be thoughtful and environmentally sustainable about how we do it. And the idea here is to really work in partnership with others, because the municipality can't own the whole growth and ECDEV portfolio on its own. It needs to be done with others, so to work really collectively with other stakeholders and to put in place really thoughtful development and redevelopment processes that also meet and recognize the needs of rural and urban. And this includes really streamlining approval processes in the planning department, securing grants to do ECDEV work, and to inform business development strategies that really meet the needs of the community. So again, the team met, and the group mapped out 7 key strategies, which involve a lot of collaborative work with developers knowing that developers and builders are critical to this, so figuring out how to work collectively with them to build and support appropriate residential and commercial growth, including infill and intensification initiatives, and then lobbying for different mixed forms of housing. I know that housing was a big discussion point, and I certainly heard a lot about it in the consultation process. Making sure that we have a list of our land asset inventory and a commercial gaps analysis so that we can communicate where we're gapping in services, but also what lands exist and what's out there, so we have that as a readiness tool. And then beautification of downtown Smithville was certainly an important piece that council spoke about, and all the hamlets, and looking at trying to figure out how to grow across all sectors. Developing urban and rural employment parks were another point that council felt was important. And then broadband and continuing to build capacity on that, as well as greening Smithville and looking at things like the lagoons, and building spaces and places where people can go out and use recreational space and enjoy a natural restorative environment. So those were the 7 strategies for that. And again, you'll see in Appendix B, there's a list of deliverables. And again, they're stated as outcomes so that they can be monitored and measured, and we can sort of track where they're at. So recognizing that you have a newly approved urban boundary expansion, it would be really working with developers and builders to support appropriate growth in the right way, in the right places, and planning for mixed housing so people from all walks of life can access housing that's affordable and accessible to them. Accessing community incentive programs and funding and other incentive programs to help with housing and to create different residential housing types. I mentioned the commercial gaps analysis, which is a concrete deliverable in addition to the land inventory database. And then really working on a planning approval process that encourages the greening of Smithville and multiple forms of housing again there. Streetscape improvements in Wellandport, and then more beautification and signage right across the entire county to make it more attractive and welcoming. Employment growth opportunities and strategies to do that in targeted sectors. And at one point, you all talked about the idea of a community hub. So senior management wants to do a feasibility study to determine how that could work and who could be in that space in partnership with others. So it would be sort of a collective community space. So that's one thing that they also want to do. And I mentioned the broadband, and I'm rejuvenating the lagoons. And then there's also a piece around investigating the impact of collapsing the urban service area tax levy into the township's general levy. So those are the hardcore deliverables for that one. Third one, which I myself got very excited about, to the point where I told the team I was online researching best practices about other townships that have done neat things in the agricultural realm. And there's some pretty neat stuff being done. I know a couple of your staff members are already starting to do research on it, but this is a really important asset you have here in West Lincoln, and there was a strong recognition from council that we need to safeguard that agricultural base. Farmland isn't renewable, it's non-renewable, so we need to take care of it. And farmers are important leaders in our community. They safeguard the land, but they also feed us, and they also bring great results economically. Council was very clear, we want to protect farmers, so you'll see this stated in the plan to create a thriving agricultural industry. And this is the first time this has been its own pillar. So this requires a bit of feasibility work and sorting through what is the role of the township in doing this work to support diversification and intensification of farming opportunities that are innovative. A number of you had really great ideas, but that work needs to be looked at from a feasibility vantage point around where's the best place to start. And this would start with discussions with all the stakeholders, a breadth of stakeholders who have expertise in this area, and obviously farmers, people who do agribusiness and agritourism, and trying to think about innovative ways to start this work in a more substantive way. And the other thing is just to celebrate this amazing legacy you have, and to really bring people together, recognize all the farmers and the products, grow the farmers market, increase safety for farmers, and then really amplify the contributions they bring to the community. So that's your third priority. And again, you'll find a series of strategies which include, first off, consulting with farmers. We need to ensure that policies and strategies are aligned to their needs, and that we're respecting where they're at and what is important to them around preserving land and responding to climate change and making it the best, setting the best conditions for them to succeed. and then all kinds of feasibility work with others, which would be a broader set of stakeholders to talk about where could we grow and innovate within the agricultural sector. And that would be looking at other places and what they've done. And also educating the community around supporting local and making that a bigger theme in communications. And that would be tied to growing the farmers market as well. And there are a number of initiatives related to safeguarding the farming community through signage, safety signage, and an emergency response program. So again, you'll see there's 9 specific deliverables around West Lincoln figures out the best way to engage the farming community and does it. The policies really consider the needs of the broad agriculture community, that the relationships that you need are animated and those folks give ideas and you begin to generate opportunities for the township collectively in partnership with others. It always works better when there's more involved and people have more assets to bring to the equation. Researching best practices and being able to offer an inventory of really neat and amazing things that are going on elsewhere. And the idea of actually rolling out a campaign, a support local campaign right across the township and doing that regularly. Expanding the farmers market, and you'll know the Share the Road sign program, really expanding that out, and also the Farm 911 Emily project to ensure that we've got an emergency response program that meets the needs of farmers. And then supporting the creation of new municipal drains. Can you hear me? Councillor Bell, can you hear me? It's Suzanne.
Now he's muted.
Okay, Councillor Bell, can you hear me? It's Suzanne. Yes. It's Suzanne speaking. Hi.
Sorry.
Oh, lovely to see you and welcome, welcome. And I'm just in the middle of presenting the strategic plan. I'm in priority 3 and I'm talking about the key strategies. So you'll see on the slide, I'm speaking to safety signage initiative and the emergency response program, just to locate where we are. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
No problem. So in terms of those deliverables, there's also the idea of the creation of new municipal drains, which is, by the way, something we heard directly from through the one-to-one consultations with community leaders. Farmer talked quite a bit about drainage and the importance of it, and that would improve agricultural productivity. So those are the 3 that are more about the community. The 4th is the foundational pillar, and this really is about all the things the township needs to do to make sure it's prepared and ready to do this work. So building capacity, making sure the staff and all the people involved are equipped and ready to do the work and to do it in an efficient, innovative, positive customer service-based way, and to do it in a fiscally responsible and thoughtful way. And also sustainable, too, I think is very important. We heard that loud and clear. So this will include ongoing proactive asset management, which is a core piece of the work, continued care for roads, bridges, culverts. There's so many things that need to be looked at and tended to, and keeping one's eye on all that and being on top of it. And then good investment practices so you can maximize returns. It's just always very good stewardship of finances. Strengthening relationships, and a big piece of this is all the departments will begin to talk and think about where they can do joint services or shared collaborations with others to be more efficient, but also to bring more to the table to the services. I think in this climate right now, really valuing the talent and expertise of the staff is important, so making commitments to build their professional development, to help them feel inspired by the work they're doing, to help them, feel like retention strategies, like I love working here and I want to make a difference, and wellness strategies as well. So there's a whole piece in this around giving staff support and building a continued culture of inclusion, innovation, and excellence. And those are the words from your senior management team. That's what they want to see. And all along, really being thoughtful about efficiencies, but really paying attention to the residents and to the folks that need your services, so you're really customer service oriented and there's a great customer experience for people coming in. And you'll see, again, strategies around exploring revenue streams. Funding and revenue is always a challenge, so getting creative about how to finance the things you're doing, making sure you have the efficient funds that are needed to upgrade your assets and to support your service delivery. There are a few services that are going to need expansion, so recognizing that. Synergies are a very, very big piece of this priority, and a lot of discussion was had both by council and senior management. And then building this great generative, open, productive work culture where people come in and they feel really inspired and they work across departments and they create great solutions and they create great collaborations that get results. And last of all, really investing in the tools and the professional development needed to support productivity and customer service. And again, you'll see a series of deliverables, and some of these are very specific to funding and getting dollars in. There's some reference to updating community cemetery grants. There's some specific things, marriage licensing service being examined and implemented, if it's viable. The mutual synergies and partnerships. And then there's a piece of work on operational policies that needs to happen so that policies are updated regularly, and that's a really important risk management strategy. Strategic investments in staff onboarding. The city clerk's office talked about the importance of putting in place an all-encompassing delegation of authority bylaw, which is a specific piece of work. And then standard operational procedures to create consistency and standardization across the organization. Lots of training, cultural competency training, and then some work in the information technology piece, which is specific to making sure we have the technology we need to do the things we need to do, but it also includes a record management system, which would include an electronic records data system, which would make information much more easily accessible. There's a few people smiling because they're very excited about this particular initiative. And last of all, really looking at the possibility of establishing a community engagement platform, which would then allow for a much more active and engaged community engagement process, and it would support it. So that is what we have in the way of the strategic priorities, all 4 of them. And I guess I would just like to put this back up to remind you there are the 4 of them. And I would personally really like to thank every single councillor for your ideas, your thoughts. I found that collectively what you generated as a vision was extremely exciting. I want to thank the senior management team who collectively rolled their sleeves up and made amazing, had amazing discussions and had great insights and thought about things from different angles and brought the best of themselves to the table. I would also especially like to thank Miss Beverly Hendry, who is an amazing CEO, and I really admire your leadership. And last of all, I really want to thank council, because it's because of your leadership that this township is blessed and wonderful and will continue to be blessed and wonderful. And my wish is, and my longing is, that this plan moves you in the right direction to where you need to be as a community, so that it's really wonderful, continues to be a wonderful place to live, and everybody feels really jazzed to live here. So there we have it, my presentation to you.
Jazzed to live here. That sounds really good, Suzanne. Thank you for that final.
You're very welcome, Madam Mayor. I pass it over to you.
Well, thank you for that wonderful presentation. You know, you put 4 hours one night and about the same another night, and individual things over a long period of time into a 20-minute presentation, and sort of hit the important notes all the way along. I am going to go to members of committee. Just before I do, in case you have questions that you want to ask, I hope that you've already made a decision in your own mind about whether you like option A or B in each of the areas that we need to look at, because that is one of the decisions that we will have to make. So first, we'll get the resolution on the floor. And Councillor Riley, you have that resolution under 15.1. If you would do that, please. And you can leave the blank for now, if you wish, and then we'll come back to that.
All right, I just got to open my window here so it's not double clicking. All right, so moved by myself, that recommendation report, CAO 02-2023 regarding the 2023 to 2026 corporate strategic plan dated June 26, 2023 be received and approved, and that vision option currently blank as outlined in the report be approved, and that mission option currently blank as outlined in the report be approved, and that the corporate strategic plan attached as Schedule A to this report be adopted and hereby implemented.
Okay, so thank you for that. So do we have somebody willing to second it with those 2 blanks right now? Councillor Bradrick, thank you. Okay, so that puts it on the floor, and we are able to discuss it. If you have a question for Suzanne, that would be great. If you just want to provide your thoughts about option A or B in either of those areas, vision or mission, that would also be okay. So any questions or comments?
Mayor Gannan,
Yeah, go ahead.
if we could have that screen up.
Oh, Perfect. So vision option and mission option, is there a way to get back to that, Kevin? It wasn't too far along the line there.
Yep, sorry, it's me, I have to move it.
Well, you have to do it, Suzanne? Okay, we won't.
Yeah. Okay.
It will be easier than going back, for sure. Okay. So we can toggle between those. That's great. So did you want to go ahead, Councillor Bradrick?
Sure. Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor, to Suzanne, thank you very much for your presentation and the engaging sessions that you provided council and senior management with. I think we all drudgingly walked into that Silverdale Hall and were quickly energized by your energy and the wonderful sandwiches that were provided that evening. But not to dismiss that your energy and engaging conversation certainly got the room on fire with a lot of great sparking conversations. And sitting in front of us is a wonderful, magical to-do list. I'm certainly one that functions with a to-do list in my daily life, and if it's ever missing, I think I would probably die. So I really appreciate those deliverables. I think that they'll really help to keep us focused and on track, and perhaps maybe we can have some, wallpaper or a nice poster made of those so that keeps us on track for each meeting. If I could
Yeah, go
have
ahead, please.
the opportunity to speak to the vision and the mission statement. Suzanne and I did have a little bit of conversation about this, as well as Madam CAO, about the vision statement. And my eyes were drawn to the second one, which is about fostering a strong sense of community. I know that as elected officials, when we went from door to door this past October or prior to, we were met by our fellow residents who were very insisting on bringing the community back together, that we had split apart in a lot of ways, even prior to the pandemic. And when I see the word fostering a strong sense of community as the first part of that sentence, it definitely has me leaning towards that one instead of the other. Not that there's really much wrong with the other, but I think because it is the first part of the statement, it really draws my eyes to it. If you could toggle over to the other one, I'll give my 2 cents worth about that. I thought the first one was better just because it was a little bit shorter, cleaner, and crisper. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Anyone further wanting to address this issue? Okay, so just then, since nobody else has a comment or a question, could I just ask, perhaps we'll just do a straw vote show of hands. Shelley has indicated that she likes vision statement B, fostering a strong sense of community. West Lincoln celebrates its rural and agricultural roots while promoting sustainable growth that increases opportunities for all. Any further comments specifically about that? Okay, so let's say, hands up those people who prefer vision statement 2, the B one, as Councillor Broderick has proposed. Okay, can I assume from that that the rest of you like vision statement 1 best? Vision statement 1 being the Township of West Lincoln will be a safe, engaged, and vibrant community that fosters connections, opportunities, and a strong sense of home. I'm neutral. I like, as you know, all of you, I've said it many times, a strong sense of community, but I also like vision statement 1. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'll chime in here. Honestly, I think I'm in the same boat with you. I'm very neutral on these. I think they both accurately describe the vision for the community, just different words. And so I think when I look at this, I'm certainly, I don't know, between the two, if I try to pick one that I'm leaning towards, I really feel unsure, because I there's wording in the second one that I really like, and I kind of like the way how it kind of focuses even on the celebration of its rural and agricultural roots, but at the same time also like the clear message of being a safe, engaged, and vibrant community that fosters the connection. So realistically, I think we're on a straw
Wow, we have to
vote
pick
here, and
one.
we have to pull one from a hat. I think, because I honestly could go either way. So maybe we could hear from more people.
Okay, so somebody else. Councillor Trombetta, do you want to weigh in? Councillor Chichok, we'll let you go first then, please. No, we'll come back to them. We'll come back. No, I just was going that way because I was going to ask everybody.
I think that the conundrum we're facing right at the moment is that there's been a lot of input, and I thank everyone for their participation, whether it was people in the community, members of council, senior staff, and certainly Suzanne. If we're all throwing accolades to one another, I don't think we can overlook what it is that we have been through with the number of meetings, dialogue, debate, frustration, joy, that we went, and the good snacks. Now I'm suffering with the dieting that comes after this strategic plan. But I think that this is evident that there was very strong language, very similar language, but that words really meant a very big thing to everyone on this council. I think the best thing that Suzanne said was that this is a map, but it's a living document, it's a living plan, and it will be reprioritized based on resources, time, and emerging issues. And that's something we can't forget. So while we are looking at these kinds of words, seeing them for the first time in a comprehensive manner on Friday was a way to really rethink the entire process. And certainly, if we're struggling at this 10-yard line to get the ball over the goalpost, I understand. It's been a struggle to get here, but it's been a worthwhile struggle, a struggle that's brought this council closer together, and one that if we pick the right way to go with the right language that's there, we are going to bring this community back to a point of celebration, back to a point of unification, and back to one where we forget our differences and look at how we would do things appropriately. There's not everything in this plan that I would agree with, but that's going to be the way it is. So if we want to spend a time reflecting on what's in there we don't like, we may overshadow the things we do like. So I think the fact that there's a bit of silence on what we really like, I'd like to hear from others before I cast my vote, but I think that really it's just what I'm seeing right now is that this is exactly what I feared would happen as we'd get to that end. We wouldn't know which piece of perfect we wanted to see. So thank you very much, and don't take it as an offense. Take it as something where the decision is very hard.
So I think, Councillor, along with what you're saying, that what we're down to are two really good statements about what we care about, and neither of them is wrong in any way, shape, or form. And the same is true, of course, of the mission statement. You know, there's no wrong choice, but we do have to embrace this. We do have to move forward. I was hoping, that you would all have chosen one of those, and we'd really just be looking at a majority rule situation. So I am going to come back and give Councillor Trombetta. Do you have a preference for vision statement A or B, Councillor Trombetta?
I don't have a preference either or. And to you, Madam Mayor, to Mrs. Gibson, you know, you put a lot of work into this presentation. We did meet 2 times. Did we meet 2 times, correct, right? We went 3, 2? And a couple phone calls, a couple of Zoom meetings.
2 big meetings and
Tried to remember.
And some smaller ones, yeah.
As the time's going by. And not that any of this is wrong or visions and missions and all that. I have my own personal things when it comes to the strategic plan on how it was, and I've mentioned to you, Madam Mayor, and I've mentioned to this council on, you know, how it was used against other councillors moving forward and how we move forward in this community. I didn't see anything in that, and I did say that in my last meeting that I had with Madam CAO and Beth, that, you know, I'm wanting to see something in there, and it's hard on your end, Mrs. Gibson, please, by all means, you're doing what you see are I guess, wants and needs from all council, but what I'm trying to prevent is what I'm saying is, you know, this strategic plan being used against other councillors in the future that are things that are not in the strategic plan. And again, it's one thing that's that's sticking with me is if a counselor, you know, has been lobbied by a constituent that wants something that's not in the strategic plan, how do we, you know, how do we circumvent that by it not being used against one another in the future? And I didn't really see any of that, Madam Mayor, and I want to see that, and I've mentioned that.
So although that isn't part of the plan, I think that was part of the opening remarks that were made in terms of this is a moving plan. This is a fluid piece, a living, I like fluid, welcoming. It's all.
And I might be jumping
very much,
ahead
but
here.
I think you're worrying about something that our past plan very much caused a problem with. This was meant to be changed. It's meant to be worked on. It's meant to be addressed over the time. And I think that those opening statements were very clearly that way. But that's not the kind of thing that is actually written into a plan. But I think if that's our common understanding, that we all know that we are not holding this as gospel, that it certainly is open to discussion as we move through this.
And that's my major
the commitment of
concern,
this council,
that
right?
this is not gospel, that this is not law on how this town moves forward. Things come up. Again, we dealt with a pandemic that came out of nowhere, and we had to make adjustments that weren't in the strategic plan because of pandemic. That things are not. Again, this is different, and I get it. I just and which I don't want to take away from Mrs. Gibson's presentation and how she brought things forward to us. That is totally, you know, again, this is totally opposite what my thought process is that I just don't want it gospel. I just don't want it that this is the law of the land that we have to abide by as council or staff.
Okay. So we have said that openly. You have my commitment that that's the way it will be treated.
And I'm going to need commitment from that
because that is the intent of this plan.
Mm-hmm.
is that it gives us guidance, but guidance is guidance. Guidance is a plan. It does not mean that it's etched in stone. So I think that, but if you don't have a direction that you want to go, if you don't have anything, then we flounder. And we don't want to waste this 4 years, almost only 3 now, that's been given to us by the people to move our community forward. And this is our opportunity to do that. So I'm just going to come back to my original question. Do you have a preference? Vision statement.
Either one is fine by me.
We have to vote on one of these, you folks, so I'm going to just keep in mind, you've got to pick one. Could I just give Councillor Rayner just a chance to say whether he has a preference in this vision or mission statements? Please, Councillor Teton. And then we'll come back. Yeah,
What's that?
yeah, we'll come back to him. I don't have him on my screen, but I have not forgotten him.
I didn't have my hand up.
I know. Do you care about either of those? Can we just vote?
I care about the whole process right now.
All right, that's not what we want to get into right now.
All right, then
Okay,
disqualify me from this.
Because it's a very small thing left to get, this is the small hurdle that we have to get over so that we can move this municipality forward. And one of those is the vision statement and the other is the mission statement. So I think then if there is no choice, I'm going to just ask you to vote on one or the other, but we will go to Councillor Bell, even though I can't see it. Councillor Bell, I hope that you can hear all of this. I'm going to ask you if you have a choice of vision statement 1 or 2, or mission statement 1 or 2. Have you made your mind up already?
Not 100%, I'm still pondering
Okay, well then you need to think about it a minute and be ready to vote, okay?
it, okay?
All right. Thanks for being here, by the way. I was happy to hear that you were going to attend virtually.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's do vision first. So A will be the Township of West Lincoln will be a safe, engaged, and vibrant community that fosters connections, opportunities, and a strong sense of home. Or 2 will be fostering a strong sense of community, which is the opposite way of saying that same thing. West Lincoln celebrates its rural and agricultural roots while promoting sustainable growth that increases opportunities for all. So those who like 1 best.
So if I may, would we be able to maybe change some of the wording if we kind of found the best of both worlds here, if that can maybe be entertained? Or, because if everyone's kind of on the fence on this, there's certain things that are standing out in some and some in the other. I think the problem is trying to find a way to unify even these two options. So not to
Which is fine,
complicate things
except for
further.
you know, that, how difficult everything else is going.
I realize, and I feel like.
So these must be the two
so-
that when you spoke individually?
Yes.
you
So
narrowed
speaking
them
to
up.
like, at least from my perspective, there's a lot I like in the first one, and I kind of wish the first one also had the celebrating its rural and agricultural roots and promoting the sustainable growth. So again, I feel like if we could bring some variation of that into the first one, then I would be more than happy to go that way. I just not too sure. We're doing this off the cuff here, so I'm not too sure with the best wording for it in this moment. And
Okay,
I-
so my best wording would be, if we went to A, the only thing that I personally find fault with is the strong sense of home. I would rather put the strong sense of community that Shelley liked first there, and then that for me, you know, exactly. So strong strengths of community would satisfy my personal thing. So does that help anybody if we include the community issue there?
Yeah, absolutely, and I certainly like the word community better than home in that category. I also think it would be great to find a way to connect the rural and agricultural roots, because I think that's a really important reflection that we need to have in our vision. So again, I feel like we can go with majority of vision option A or 1, and then if we can bring in change home to community and then somehow bring in that.
Okay, so can we combine the rural and urban with the township of West Lincoln will be a safe, engaged, and vibrant rural/urban community? So acknowledging both.
Okay.
That fosters connections, opportunities, and a strong sense of community.
While,
Does that do it?
while promoting sustainable growth that increases opportunities.
Okay, so then it gets
We
longer
have
and
the
longer and
then we have the word
longer.
opportunities in it twice.
While celebrating. You gotta get the celebrating.
I know, the celebrates is what like really reflects that. Okay.
Okay, so Madam CAO, do you have
I'm
a
going
solution
to,
for this conundrum?
I'm going to try.
Okay, good.
So the Township of West Lincoln will be a safe, engaged, and, the Township of West Lincoln will be a safe, engaged, and vibrant rural/urban community that fosters connections, opportunities, and a strong, actually, I would just say after opportunities while celebrating its rural roots.
Okay, to the expert.
Well, you could actually start with celebrating its rural and agricultural roots. The Township of West Lincoln will be a safe, engaged, and vibrant community that fosters connections, opportunities, and strong sense of community, if you wanted, not home. I'm not sure I would tag the last part on, just because the feedback we got was the last one was too long.
Yes.
So I'm just going to remind you, you all said the last one's too many words, but there's no
yeah.
right or wrong to this.
There is no right or wrong, but are we happier with that combination?
I'm definitely happy with the combination. And I do agree, I certainly don't want to see a redundant of words recycled within it. So if we could just find, I think we do want to end on community, so if maybe we can find a different word to use what Madam CEO had read there. Or what it, so Suzanne, can you just read kind of off the cuff?
So
the-
I was suggesting you start with celebrating its rural and agricultural roots. The Township of West Lincoln will be safe, engaged, and vibrant. The dilemma is we have community twice, but it could be community that fosters connections, opportunities, and a strong sense of home. If you don't like home, you could do community and talk about engaged and vibrant.
So could the
Township.
first community be, could one of those be replaced with, the second one I like, a strong sense of community? Could the first one be municipality that fosters? Does
It
that-
could easily.
Does that work, so that we're not using that same word
It could
twice?
easily. As long as everyone's comfortable with it, for sure.
Okay, so we're going to consider all of this discussion a friendly amendment to this open-ended thing that we have anyway, because it is really a piece of work in place. So, so our vision statement, and Madam Clerk, how are you doing with all of that? So do you have what, essentially what Suzanne has just presented? Well done, well done. So will that suffice for number 2 for now on our resolution list? No, we're going to mission. Yeah, okay. So that's vision, right? So that's number 2, so, okay.
I will pull it up on the screen just so everyone can see it, Madam Mayor, through you. Originally it said vision option 1. I will eliminate that to have the specific words in there so everyone can see it. And those specific words will be approved by it. So once we have both the vision and the mission, I can read it all together.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so let's flip to see what we can do with mission. Thank you, Suzanne. So the Township of West Lincoln provides responsive municipal services that enhance the quality of life in our community. Or, through efficient and effective leadership, the Township of West Lincoln provides quality services and opportunities for engagement to enhance the quality of life in our community.
So I, as far as getting the ball rolling on this, I am perfectly fine with the first one. Short, sweet, to the point. And so as far as putting it out there, I'd be happy if this got voted on and supported.
If you're
Make
fine
a
with
motion,
that.
I'll second it.
All right, I'll move that we go with option, mission option
You don't
1.
need to do
Trust
that.
us,
We
we're
need-
trying to kill elections here.
I know, we're going to take a look at that. Is there anybody who prefers mission statement B? Okay, so we will go then with the top one. There's nobody shaking their head or their fist. So the Township of West Lincoln provides responsive municipal service that enhances the quality of life in our community. Will be this. Okay, so Councillor Bell, we're going to come back to you. Are you fine with mission statement 1? The Township of West Lincoln provides responsive municipal services that enhance the quality of life in our community. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that'll work.
Thank you, Terry. Okay. All right, so we'll wait for the clerk then to be able to provide those, the new wording, and I think we're just about there. Thank you for your input, everyone. I think that's important that we have this discussion to the end. Okay, are you ready with that? Okay, we'll just give the clerk a second to make sure. Oh, and the vote comes up, and it should be on your screen with the new wording, the vision option chosen, celebrating. Double check and make sure that's what you want. It sounds good to me. All right, so vote, please, when you're ready. That's the motion. Okay. Okay, so Councillor Bell, our clerk cannot see what you're doing. Would you like to tell us, please, if you're in favor of that resolution?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
I'm having a little bit of trouble, but
Okay,
Okay.
that's good. We're still glad that you're here. Hopefully it's not too much trouble, and we'll deal with it on our end. He says
Okay.
yes. Okay, Councillor Sheetrock, have you voted?
No, I'm ready. We're supposed to do that already?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that resolution carries. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Suzanne, for getting us through this process.
Well,
We
thank
really
you,
do
and it's been a
appreciate it.
tremendous pleasure, and I cannot wait to see what magic and fairy dust you create for the community, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. You too, thank you again. Wow. Okay. Councilor Sheetrock?
I guess just before we leave the strategic plan, I think just to cement what it is that Councillor Trombetta's trepidation was, I appreciate greatly your commitment to the fact that we will not be using this as a cemented template. And I think that's what we entered in, and I'm sorry that Suzanne is gone, But certainly, my commitment and my view of passing this and endorsing it was that it was done to the point that Suzanne made, whether it's living plan or fluid document, that will not result in, I pray that over this next 3 and a bit years, that we are not going to be saying, it's not in the plan, so we can't do it. And I think that's what you've been worried about. So,
And Councillor Trombetta has expressed that many times
I
throughout the
understand.
whole process.
And so for
I
me,
think
it was
it's
hard to
clear.
leave the strategic plan without saying that and having people nod and to get it, because that is not what this strategic plan is about. It is about unification and about celebration and about putting this community back to where it was several years ago. So saying that and not seeing anybody to the contrary, I think should comfort Councillor Trombetta. And if he does hear that, he can call us out,
Absolutely.
at least me
Absolutely.
personally.
You certainly can, yeah.
And thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Chichek, for that. That is one of my concerns, but I think part of me believes that this council is a veteran council, and I think all members on this council are seasoned councillors that have been here before, and I know in working with them all, I believe that they're not going to be waffling on me on this, so I have to use a better term.
You
but I'll
better not
just
say
use-
waffling on me, because it sounds
No,
like you have a
but-
preconceived
no.
idea that you forgot to bring up.
No, but I believe that with this maturity and the, I guess, the count that we do have on this council, I'm hoping, and I know that they will stand by their word
I think
in
so.
this. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, okay. Thank you both. Okay, Steve and Suze, you've waited a very long time. That took a much longer period of time than we anticipated, but thank you for your coming in. Please come up to the presentation chair. There's one there. I think the last time you were here, we probably had a podium, and we didn't live stream. It was a different council, a different scenario, but welcome.
I love standing at the podium of the region. I call it the people's podium. You know, when I present, there's a special power to it. I've been doing that for almost a decade. And West Lincoln, we started a national human rights movement. The last few days have been, American and so just magical. People reaching out to me from coast to coast, asking for assistance to do what we did in Niagara. Take a stand for families being stolen from us, from the societal ills of mental health, homelessness, and addiction. I was almost one of those victims. But I came to a community, this community, West Lincoln, and the entire community swarmed around me, and I recovered. And here I stand today, the leader of a national human rights movement. Well, I have never seen Niagara in a more violent state. I have never seen Niagara more divided. So when we talk about unifying this town, when we talk about unifying this region, then we have to support declaring a state of emergency on mental health, addiction, and housing affordability. Let me tell you, it was extremely difficult to hear for 4 years that this emergency was symbolic and did not lead to any money. It's not, and it does. A few updates here. The federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Housing, has provided Niagara with $9 million to establish emergency domestic abuse shelters for women and children. I brought that to Grimsby Council. They supported that resolution. I had a lengthy conversation with Councillor Chichok, who she wholeheartedly supported the idea. And I want one of those established in Niagara West. Because it's hard when someone is isolated, they live in a rural community, they're a victim of domestic abuse, and what are we supposed to expect of them? Travel to Hamilton, travel to St. Catharines. But hey, our NRT hours are only from this time to this time. So we have a lot of work to do. But what I'm here tonight to do is celebrate the accomplishment we did together. We achieved this together. Mayor Ganan, it's always the school teachers for some reason. Councillor Carmen DeRose in Thorold. Councillor Wayne Campbell in Niagara Falls. May the spirit of his daughter fly as high as the eagle and soar through the country. May the spirits of all our families who have been stolen from us do the same. We're going to protect human life tonight. We're going to acknowledge that we were all born with the same inherent human rights, and we can stand together. And I'm looking at Councillor Witteveen, another huge support to me over the years, especially at the regional level, especially in giving me knowledge to build a food security motion that is going to come forward in Thorold, because I can personally tell you, I've gone 13 days without eating when I was an addict, and what it did to my mental health, I cannot describe to you. But you know what? The advocates are in the room right now. And you have advocates like the retiring town clerk who has provided support to this community for 40 years, Joanne. And you know what? On top of that, you just heard a presentation from Susan on corporate services and providing services that enhance the quality of life of residents. And I've shown how the state of emergency, in fact, does that. $20.8 million from the provincial government for homelessness prevention, the federal money for the domestic shelters, and even a project through Ontario Trillium grants for my hometown of Welland South to provide 25 kids with adequate housing and community outreach programs simultaneously. It was worth the wait. It was worth the fight. And I will swallow any fear, hesitation, or doubt as I move this movement nationally to every large First Nation, unaffiliated First Nation, tribal council throughout the province and the country. And now I will take any questions that this incredible Council of Advocates has for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. So is there any member of council that does have a question regarding what Stephen was talking about? We do have a resolution, but I wondered if there's anybody who wants to make a question. We will put the resolution on the floor. I just didn't know if there was anybody. Okay, so Stephen, what we have is a resolution that will go on the floor and be duly made and seconded, and then further discussion can occur about your resolution. So hang tight. So Councillor Bradwick has this. You know, she thought she had a long resolution. What she learned tonight is how we had shortened it and shortened it and shortened it. So please give Councillor Bradwick your attention as she reads this shortened version of the resolution provided by Mr. Sues. Go ahead, Shelley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas the Niagara Region, City of St. Catharines, City of Thorold, City of Niagara Falls, City of Welland, Town of Grimsby, and City of Hamilton have declared states of emergencies on mental health, homelessness, housing affordability, and/or addiction, and whereas the Township of West Lincoln endorses Niagara Region's declaration of a federal humanitarian crisis on homelessness in Niagara, and whereas the Township of West Lincoln endorsed the Town of Grimsby's motion declaring a housing affordability emergency, and whereas the Township of West Lincoln endorsed the City of St. Catharines' motion of condemning the discrimination of the mentally ill, homeless, and addiction, and whereas the Township of West Lincoln supports the West Lincoln Public Libraries to highlight and showcase more literature on Indigenous wellness, and whereas the Township of West Lincoln supports Stephen Sue's initiative for an Indigenous mobile mental health crisis unit pilot project for the Niagara region, and therefore be resolved that the Township of West Lincoln declare a state of emergency and crisis on mental health, homelessness, addiction, and housing affordability, and it be further resolved that travel to other cities for services continues to be a challenge for several West Lincoln residents, and as such, the Township of West Lincoln request more funding for the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital in order for the hospital to be fully staffed, functional hospital with built-in mental health and addiction services. And be it further resolved that the Township of West Lincoln advocate for the establishment of an emergency domestic abuse shelter servicing Niagara West and research interested organizations willing to deliver this service locally, and that it be further resolved that the Township of West Lincoln requests that Sam Oosterhoff, MPP for Niagara West, approach the Provincial Minister Michael Kernzner, Solicitor General Michael Tobolo, Associate Minister Mental Health and Addiction, Sylvia Jones, Health, and Stephen Clark, Municipal Affairs and Housing, to discuss assistance for the priorities identified in this motion. And that it be further resolved that the Township of West Lincoln request MP Dean Allison to approach the federal ministers Caroline Bennett, Mental Health and Addictions, Ahmad Hussein, Diversity and Housing, Krista Freeland, Finance, and Mona Fortier, Treasurer Board, to request federal support for Niagara Region's emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. And be it further resolved that all Niagara area municipalities, all Niagara area MPPs, MPs, Stephen Sue's, Health, Niagara Health System, Hamilton Center, MPP Sarah Jama, Hamilton Center MP Matthew Green, City of Hamilton, AMO, FCM, Niagara Regional Police Chief, Provincial and Federal Ministers of Housing, Provincial and Federal Ministers of Health, West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, West Lincoln Community Care, Kathy Turner, Community Living Grimsby, Lincoln West Lincoln, YMCA Niagara, Hamilton Health Sciences, Greg Fergus MP, Parliamentary Secretary, Canada, Mona Fortier, President, Canada Treasurer Board, Stephen Kusi, Critic for the Federal Treasury Board, Federal Minister of Finance, Christy Freeland, Federal Minister of Mental Health and Addiction, Carolyn Bennett, Parliamentary Secretary for Mental Health and Addictions, Elizabeth Breyer, Parliamentary Secretary for Mental Health and Addictions, Todd Daugherty, Critic for Mental Health, and Layla Goodridge, Critic for Addiction, to be copied on the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. We need someone to second that motion, please. Councillor Riley, thank you. Okay, so any questions or comments on the resolution? Councillor Riley.
Thank you. Councillor Bradrick, I'd ask you to read it a second time there. I don't know if you,
It's in agenda.
Yes, perfect. Well, I guess I'll start by thanking Stephen Seuss for coming back out here. He's a familiar face. For anybody who recalls in the last term at council, he's been a strong advocate for this every step of the way. And if you guys recall, several times we called on the region to declare a state of emergency, and eventually that happened. It took time and patience, but they got us there. My question, and even in conversation I've had with Stephen in the past, has always been very supportive, but always questioning where does West Lincoln really sit in that threshold to actually declare that state of emergency. The problem with when we go and start declaring states of emergency, if the municipality itself isn't at the threshold, one, what effect does it actually have? You know, I know there's perception, but at the same time, we're also now setting a precedent that now we're declaring it on behalf of other communities, not necessarily our own, and how does that play out? I guess the other thing, or so the first thing I'll go through you, Madam Mayor, to our CAO, if maybe she could speak to if the staff have any information, stats, specifics, to really show where West Lincoln kind of falls on the map with this. And again, I understand that everybody across the region, across the province, across the globe are definitely struggling with this. The only thing that's kind of holding me up with this resolution is that declaration, because again, I just don't want that to be, that's a tool that shouldn't be used lightly when we go and make these statements. And I also want to make sure that whatever we do is actually having the right impact. And Stephen, it's not you right now, going to go to our CAO first, and then they can come back to you. But again, I just want to make sure this isn't being abused and that this actually is effective, because this isn't something that's great. We can stand up here, we can say we support it, you know, tell everybody what they want to hear, but then if nothing's going to be come out of it, then what's the point? You know, we want to have action, not just commentary. So if I can start with that question.
So, Madam CAO, do you have a response, please?
Yes, through you, Mayor Gannon, to Councillor Riley. I think I've told this group before that I have the privilege of sitting as the representative of the rural municipalities in Niagara Region on the Community Safety Committee, and actually that's a committee that I don't give enough to. I take from. I get a lot of information from that, and probably through that I could garner some of this data. But I certainly don't have anything at hand right now. But we have different sectors come and report. So the police come and talk about the issues that they see continuously. All the social services agencies report through that. And what I do know is that there are issues in West Lincoln. They aren't the same as other municipalities because we vary so much across the region, but it's not like it doesn't happen here. There are different issues, and it's a community that also does a lot of protection sort of through family and friends. So, but it is there is data out there. I could share it maybe through a memo, if that would help. But and I'd have to ask my counterparts to help me put it together. But that would be my source of information. Okay, I appreciate that. And I will mention as well, like, and Madam Mayor, you might even recall as well, and actually maybe Councillor Chichuk, you know, with the last was a conference we were at. I'm trying to think which one. If it was, I guess it would have been Roma. So Toronto. So we're seeing, like, even a couple of years ago when we were in Ottawa, this was a very clear. You couldn't go 5 feet down the street without bumping into somebody that, you know, was obviously struggling.
Last summer in Ottawa,
and then
was very much
I noticed that even a huge spike in Toronto. So we understand that this is definitely targeting the bigger populated communities. So again, I just, when it comes to throwing this stuff around, I just want to tread lightly that we're doing things procedurally correct. We're not necessarily wasting our time, wasting taxpayers' dollars on something that's going to have very little to no success. And I want to see this successful every step of the way. So I want to make sure, again, we're not kind of wasting time and giving the wrong idea. It's one thing to say, oh, they're behind us, they stand for us, but then nothing comes of it. How many times have we seen that with political figures across the spectrum? Everyone can talk a good game, but do they actually deliver when it matters? So that's my concern. But right now, as far as, and we'll see how conversation goes here, I'm pretty much in support of 99.9% of this. I would, maybe when it comes to the declaration part, I wouldn't mind seeing a friendly amendment, and maybe we focus more on endorsing it, or we maybe have a situation where maybe staff reports back to us at a later date with those specifics, so we can really have a full idea and comprehension of what's actually facing our community. Because, like, again, not to sound like a broken record, but we all walk the streets in our community, and we're certainly not seeing anything like that. And it's not that things aren't happening in home, not that things are happening at work or anywhere else recreationally. But again, I just don't know if we're at that threshold for that, and that's my concern. But otherwise, that's my comments for now, and I'll reserve some more.
Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Seuss, Stephen, for your presentation again. Had you in here before. I got one question, though. I'm kind of confused. I thought last term we did declare a state of emergency on mental health, and you got all support from all the 12 municipalities. Did we not, or am I confused here?
So through the chair, if I can answer that question. So if you don't mind me just quickly commenting on Councillor Riley's point, he makes many legitimate concerns, but I do note that at the town and city level, they follow the emergency plans of the Niagara region. That's outlined in the Provincial Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. And through that same legislation, you can have the government establish facilities of care and procure resources, staffing, and supports to those facilities of care. It's all outlined in that act. You can work faster with the state of emergency, and you get a coordination with the provincial government through the POEC, which is under the umbrella of the Ontario Solicitor General. I am actually a guest lecturer on this now at Brock University on federal and provincial states of emergency. People say, you know this issue like the back of your hand. No. I know it better than the back of my hand. So that's just, but I understand where you're coming from. I think it would be a great idea to consult the community because it starts with a conversation about mental health and addiction. But I also note that homelessness and housing, right, they are very, very, very interconnected, but they also are treated as two different files in a way. So when you're declaring a state of emergency on housing affordability, you're acknowledging that there is somebody who is one paycheck away from losing their house and then who will become homeless. And just because they become homeless in West Lincoln, they could end up in St. Catharines, right? So they start off, they lose their house, and now they're homeless. They were living in West Lincoln, and now they end up in St. Catharines homeless. So yeah, that's the connection there. Like this municipality, and it's the rural municipalities I noticed that are getting, I'm gaining a lot of support from because this is the first time many of them have talked about these issues. And so I just want to say that. And I know, I'm long-winded, Madam Mayor, I understand that.
Just so long as you don't forget that Councillor Trombetta asked
I never forget anything. So Councillor Trombetta, just quickly restate your question so I can give you the most accurate answer as possible.
So my question was, sorry, I thought you were answering there, Steve. Sorry, to repeat my question.
Yes, please.
I know we got endorsed from all the 12 municipalities and went to the region, and the region declared a state of emergency. Is this, so we already have it. Where I'm confused a little bit, Steve, is that we always supported it last term. Did something get removed?
Okay, so I will touch on.
So my whole thing is it's still active.
Okay, so West Lincoln unanimously supported the request for Niagara region to declare the emergency. That gained the support of 11 out of 12 of the councils except for Lincoln.
Correct.
Okay, so now I went on 2 tours of Niagara. My second one, which is going on right now, which this is part of tonight, is having the municipalities actually declare the emergencies. And out of Niagara so far, that has been Grimsby, who also declared an emergency on housing affordability per my change, because I want to be honest with people, and I thought it was important to, I'm not going to state, Grimsby has 1 homeless recorded. So at the time I checked in on that motion, so I'm not going to, housing affordability, again, very much so for Grimsby. So we changed the language in there, and that's what I'm asking West Lincoln to do. So you supported the request. Now Niagara region declared, Kingston declared mental health and addiction crisis. City of St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Welland, Thorold.
And I understand that.
Actual declaration, St. Catharines.
So my thing is, Stephen, like some of these I totally agree. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around it. Like obviously I know there's a housing affordability. A lot of people are dealing with that. That's no doubt. There is a homeless problem. But as we gave the support, I remember having multiple meetings with you even presenting.
Yes.
We went to the region declared it. Doesn't West Lincoln fall under that umbrella? What has been removed? What has changed that we're doing it again? Right now I'm still thinking we still have already an emergency. We've declared a state of emergency and we've endorsed the Niagara region, which we fall under. So It's still active is what I'm trying to say. So what has changed?
There is no, sorry, Councillor Trombetta, through the chair in response to Councillor Trombetta, there is no active declaration at Town of West Lincoln for an emergency on mental health, housing affordability, and addiction. So that was the request that West Lincoln supported. And when we did that motion together, we were also pushing for the change in the provincial funding formula that was giving Hamilton double the homelessness money for virtually the same population of Niagara Region. And West Lincoln asked through Sam Osterhoff, MPP in Niagara West, to approach the Minister of Housing to fix that. And I'm proud of West Lincoln for doing that. Now, where we're talking about is, this is about jurisdiction. So yes, Niagara Region declared a region-wide emergency in their jurisdiction, but I'm asking West Lincoln to declare an emergency in town jurisdiction, right? So what happened was, after the state of emergency got declared in Niagara Region, I put forward 100 recommendations of things the region could do for the mental health, addiction, homelessness, and housing file. Now, there are things that don't fall under the region's jurisdiction, right? Like libraries, for example, when I'm asking for more Indigenous wellness literature. So when I went to Niagara Falls, they are working on a follow-up motion as well. And I put in 30 recommendations of actionable items that the city can respond to in their city emergency. So we're talking about responsibilities here. Mental health, housing, homelessness, and addiction are files that require an intergovernmental approach to tackle. It's not the responsibility of one government, it's the responsibility of all governments, including the town. Councillor Trombetta, I hope maybe I cleared up some of your questions there.
Well, like you did, Stephen. There's some stuff that, like the libraries, which I'm totally in support of, all that kind of stuff. And again, there's a lot of these in here, but I was just confused in the sense where the region's already declared it on us. Well, we're endorsing that as well. So that means West Lincoln is endorsing it. So that's where maybe, to follow up to Councillor Riley, I don't know if that's got to go back to staff for giving us some more clarification on it, or I'm kind of confused on that. It sounds like to me where it's coming is that the region, maybe I'm missing something that didn't come from the region, right, Stephen? I'm getting this tonight, and, I always thought we already had the emergency declared in all of it, which West Lincoln falls in West Lincoln, right? So other than libraries, like you said, which you already have in this motion, so.
There's much more.
Well, much more, but as I said, there's a lot more things in this motion,
Well,
right?
and let me just, if I may, Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, we're going
Okay.
to, just one second.
Yeah,
So-
I need to hear more conversation, absolutely.
Okay, so some more questions or more answers
Yeah,
from Mr.
absolutely.
Sues?
No, I'm okay with maybe
Okay,
Stephen.
so
can-
let's move to another counselor because it may open up another avenue, Stephen, if that's okay with you. So Counselor Chichok, please.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and Madam Mayor. And I too, I echo many of the comments that were made by my colleague to my left, Councillor Riley, as well as some of the questions that I feel may be getting this whole resolution into repetitive motions. There's not a single recital in this whole pronouncement that was put here tonight by Mr. Sue that is not laudable. But it's very comprehensive. And having been deemed not understandable, I was victimized once by writing recitals that were like 3 pages long when we were doing wind turbines. And we found that confused the heck out of other orders of government as well as the region and other things. And it was suggested to us as a municipality to come with very clear motions about different things. Housing, I'm using this as an example, please don't take me at my liberty, but mental health, addiction, and as well as homelessness, which is far beyond just the homelessness of people suffering from mental health or addictions. And so to me, when I read this, I'm not really sure where Mr. Sue has asked for this to go before a number of committees and a number of people at various levels. Yes, housing is a regional issue, affordable housing, and subsidized housing, transitional housing, housing that takes people from one place to another so that they can get back on their feet. All of those are supported through funding from the federal government to the provincial government with that funding matching sometimes to a regional government to put them in the greatest areas of need. And I don't know here, our CAO has said to get the statistics on what's happening in the region of Niagara as compared to the region city of Hamilton. We don't have those tonight, you say. And I would say that some of the information we're seeing here to support some of the recitals within this motion do not have the backup that would be the knockout punch to what it is that wants to happen here. We see a lot of items that are here that cross functional areas and are, I would say that if this motion were to go to the federal government or the provincial government, they would say, well, let's give it to that guy. He might do something with it because that's his area, versus taking it apart. And I do know that there was a lot of time put in it, Madam Mayor. I know you put time into it. I know our CAO did. I know Mr. Sue has put in a lot of time. But I really, really would hope that if this motion on the table were to fail tonight, that we would put something together that celebrated what has been accomplished. Mr. Sue says there's been a lot accomplished. I don't know that we've even scratched the surface, but that's globally. It's within all of Ontario. It's within all of Canada. And we have immigration coming to us. Those people are fighting just to get housing. So if there's an acknowledgement to be made, that's fine. That we ask and we refer this motion to our staff to simplify and develop motions that are appropriate for orders, levels of government to be able to look at them so that they can address what is specific to them, and then a comprehensive way of putting together their responses to us so that we might address these things in a way that are not pushed to the side of the desk or to the next ministry. We should not ask the government or ministers, because gosh, they change all the time. I would say that if we're going to do a motion, we should be putting it to the ministry, because you know what happens when a minister leaves office? Yep. Garbage can. I'm not being facetious in any manner. I'm trying to give legs to something that is very important, because just as every child matters, every woman, man, and family matter to me. And if we're not going to give this the right focus, we're just putting a whole bunch of words out there that we might get answers to. I'm sorry, Mr. Sue, but I am very strong about this. I believe in this. I believe I shared these opinions and these motions with you. I do not want to just put lengthy motions out there that have such a combination of things in it that everyone can use that as an excuse to push it to the next person or the next ministry. So if we were to able to celebrate what you've accomplished, and that I think is best known in your mind, and if we were able to simplify, give this to staff, receive it and send it to our staff to simplify the motions and put them into order where there is appropriateness of some of these recitals in such a manner that they then go to a ministry responsible and ask them for a response back, and that we have time to talk with our CAO after finding information that compares us to other areas where we then know more about what we're saying. Because my first thought would be, I would think there's far more homelessness in Hamilton. I think there's far more drug addiction. But are they managing it? Do we know those answers? So as we compare ourselves to other places, we do need to have some information, some of which belongs to the region, some which is not shareable, some which we can get from general information that's out there, and know more about what the suffering in Niagara is. It's only a couple weeks ago that I found out how 30% of the women seeking shelter from abuse are being treated in Niagara in a facility in Beamsville. And if we don't know all these things, it'll be very embarrassing when somebody comes back to us and says, yeah, well, you didn't mention this and you didn't mention that, you didn't mention that. So my point is, you know, you never ask a question or ask unless you know the answer and know what could come back. And that's not with more answers that are not complete or without the information to support it. So I would be truly supportive of a motion, Madam Mayor, that if this one on the floor were to fail, at the appropriate time, to put forward a motion that thanks Mr. Sue, looks for us to look for opportunities, referring this back to staff, let me just keep it simple, that we take this presentation, refer it back to staff, and simplify and develop motions that are appropriate to each level of government, and after seeing and hearing information from our own CAO and the CAO from the region or wherever we can garner information. But I'd like to see something that's narrowed, focused, and supported by information.
Okay, so I don't think that's any surprise to you, because we did talk about that over and over again in terms of narrowing the focus and keeping it crisp and clean. And in actual fact, just so that all council are aware, staff have spent a great deal of time getting this resolution to this point. Not so much myself. My advice was pick out your most important points and keep them very simple, very clear, and stick to that. And for that reason, we do have two separated motions. I think in your enthusiasm to get something done, to make things happen, that you are probably hearing from our council that they would rather you slow down and be accurate and put it together in a clear way so that it doesn't get wasted. This council is not about sort of empty motions that go nowhere. They're about making motions that will make a difference, and I think that part of that message is coming through. Anything further? Okay, good. Okay, so we do have Councillor Bell with his hand up virtually. So thank you for your patience. Councillor Bell, go ahead.
If Councillor Chichek would like to make a motion, what she spoke of, I'd be more than happy to support it, because I agree with what she said. I think Mr. Seuss's motion is there, but it has to be put together in such a way that it can be broken down and be dealt with problem by problem. So if Councillor Chichek would put a motion on the table, I would definitely second it and support it.
Okay, well, that's a step ahead of where we are just yet, but thank you for that. We'll keep that in mind.
I think Councillor Bell was reading my mind. Honestly, I don't think this is something we want to accidentally misrepresent in any capacity. We want to make sure. I would not want to see this fail, because I think that in itself sends the wrong message. I would be of the opinion that I think this is something we refer to staff. We get our T's crossed and our I's dotted and everything else, and then we come back later and we ensure we have something that we can actually get results with. So that's very much of what I was thinking. So I support that. Councillor Bell would second that.
Madam CEO, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I think Councillor.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Broderick first.
Just quickly, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Seuss. Certainly, as my fellow councillors have noted, that these issues present differently in West Lincoln, but we are not oblivious to them, and we do know that they do happen. Less than a month ago, a family that has a long history in West Lincoln lost their 17-year-old son to an addiction. And, that, hits to my heart, and I want to see services that are provided locally and that are accessible to our community, who is more isolated than those that reside in more urban settings. I think that a lot of your points are correct. However, I agree that we need to concise those. And if we can refer to back our strategic plan that we just approved this evening, part of it was about lobbying for those social services. And I think that if we take that back to staff, they'll give us that concise, accurate report that will allow us to give better direction on what that looks like. Thank you.
Madam CEO.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Ganan, to... Is my mic on again? Maybe I have to speak right into it. I'm not an expert, and you need to be aware of that, because I can't go, I know that Stephen spends a lot of time researching this, and what I can do is just pass on what I have, but I can, and to you, Stephen, I see that you are extremely, interested and passionate, and you have a lot of ideas in this motion, and you have lots of names and contacts. But if we can try to make it talk about what you want in terms of emergency or support, or I think we have to figure out what you really specifically need, because you want something to happen. So we just have to. I think I may do well, I may not. I don't know.
So it is very important, I think, that what you're hearing is that this council is very supportive, but feel that this long, lengthy resolution is not the way to get what you want or what we think we need for our community. And we certainly don't want to appear to assume that this isn't a problem that we have. We know it is a problem in our community. We know, because it's a small community, our percents might be lower, but the bottom line is every community is dealing with it, whether they're a large community, a rural community, a big city, it's everywhere. And certainly we want to get this right. So I think what I'm going to ask you before we check with the clerk for the best way to handle this moving forward is, are you good to continue to provide some of the input we need as staff try to narrow down these resolutions so that we condense them and make them more effective? Does that satisfy you for this evening in terms of moving forward?
I am so willing to work with anybody in this community who wants to forward the state of emergency on mental health, housing affordability, and addiction. Councillor Chichok, though, I can guarantee you at 1,000%, because we still got to get to know each other a little better, any motion with Stephen Seuss's name on it, nobody will ignore. And you're seeing how fast the changes are coming down. Within days, 9 million, 56,000, these funding announcements I mentioned as the government responding to the emergency. And how else? What is the difference between a regional emergency and a town emergency? Well, towns are responsible for recreation. People use recreation and exercise and work to heal. They use trail systems. I did to help me quit drugs. I did to support my mental health. There's a new program that was implemented in Pelham for kids to learn about life on the farm, because that's helping their mental health. So the only limit to the state of emergency is the imagination, and there are no limits to the imagination. So yes, I will work with this community every step of the way. And mind you, another town responsibility, sure, the Niagara region, as in respect to the housing issue, you have to remember that the town of West Lincoln has a building division. They have zoning. They are responsible for the builds, right? So here's the issue. This is why municipalities follow the emergency plans of their upper tier, and I don't mean that with any disrespect, government, which is, again, in the provincial legislation, because you need that coordinated process, because there are things within the building of houses that is town responsibility and not regional responsibility. It's just like, it's not the town's responsibility for a regional road, right? So we have to be very mindful that how many tools this emergency really gives us, and not to mention my people, the Indigenous people. As a Métis person, Canada's population has 2.6% of Indigenous people left. We are dropping like flies due to the disproportionate amount of suicide and drug overdose. 10% of the opiate overdoses, 2.6% of the population. Missing and murdered Indigenous girls and women, the violence committed on them. I just want West Lincoln Council to know that I'm going to defend all Canadians who are being stolen from us, like I said in our speech, but I'm also going to protect my people from what is an ongoing genocide. My mom is in the parking lot tonight. She has anxiety. She doesn't want to come in. She grew up in the FACT system as an Indigenous person. I want federal Indigenous child welfare legislation now. I want my people broken free from the chains of the Indian Act that has the state controlling the lives of Indigenous people from birth to death. I want to give my people their freedom because the government is no longer our masters. And there are still people out there digging up the graves of Indigenous children. That is disgusting.
Okay, so I'm going
We
to-
have work to do, Mayor Ganan, and I just hope West Lincoln Council will take action. But this state of emergency is also a tool for Indigenous reconciliation. So I add that to the commentary here. I'm very sorry for my rave.
You have added a lot, which is further complicated.
I know.
We've made it very long. You have several issues that you care passionately about. We recognize that, but thank you. Okay, so Madam Clerk, how best do we handle this at this point in time? Do we vote on the first resolution, or can we just refer back to staff without having to do that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So through you to members of council, what we would do is put forward an amending resolution to the resolution that's on the table right now. What I'm hearing is for this to be referred back to staff. So we do have a resolution on the table right now. We would carry it as amended for the resolution to be referred back to staff.
Okay, so then we will add that recommendation that we refer that back to staff as was originally proposed way back by Councillor Chichok and seconded by Councillor Bell.
I don't want to lose the idea that we are looking for additional information, statistical information, financial information that we may glean from other orders of government or perhaps from Mr.
So in terms
Sue.
of referring to staff, that would be the specifics that we'd be asking them to.
Exactly.
To look
And
for?
we want, and not to lose the fact that we want a very clean and very defined resolution directed at the right level or order of government or agency, and that those can come back. It's probably not going to happen until, well, we don't have a lot of meetings until September, so it probably,
Yeah, July and August.
whatever. So I'm not trying to put it
Whenever
off.
staff are ready.
That's right, but there's vacations staff have, and we aren't meeting, so I'd like this to be done well, because quite frankly, I miss the Indigenous part, the fact that it was such an
Well,
integral part.
there's a little bit.
There was a little bit, but I'm now hearing from Mr. Sue a much larger part. So I think we want to take this apart with his help and put it back together. And if that means that we have to meet, or a subcommittee of council has to meet or something, it's this council that has to put together what they want with the help of our staff. And Mr. Sue, and I'm sorry that we haven't learned to know each other much more than we have, but I'm sure that over the time this is going together, we will. So I just want to be clear that we're trying to put together something that our community can embrace, we can endorse, and we can put forward. Okay?
I'm good with that.
Good.
Okay, so Madam CAO.
Just for council's clarification, there were the two separate?
There's another
Okay.
motion that we haven't dealt with.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so I think our clerk had suggested that it just can be a motion, an amendment to refer. Although all of those details that you they will be in the minutes, they are in the recording of the minutes, but that this will be a clean refer back to staff for further clarification and improvements to the overall amendment process. I think that we're good with that because we do have
As long as the
also-
clerk is letting us go, that's fine.
Yeah, it was her suggestion, so I think we're
Fine.
good with that, but, okay.
So we'll have to have the same referral motion for the second item too.
Okay, so everybody has an understanding now. We are not letting this motion pass or fail. We simply have an amendment to refer it back to staff until more information is garnered.
Through you, Mayor Ganan, to members of council, in order to put forward amending resolution, it's carried as amended. So the original resolution would be carried as amended. So we would go back to the resolution once this resolution to refer back to staff is carried, we'd go back to the original motion, because that's the one that's on the
That's
table.
the one that's on the table.
Yes,
Okay,
so
that's
we would
my
be
understanding
referring
too.
it to council though, or to staff.
Okay,
It's in your
so we're
hands.
going to vote on the amendment? Right?
On
And
the
then on
amendment.
the motion as amended.
Correct.
Good. Okay, everybody's got that?
Move that, because I've tried to drink it 3 times. I just won't.
Okay. So this is the amendment, that it's going to go back. So vote on that, please.
Can we get a specific date for the timeline?
No.
No?
Well, the difficulty with that at this point in time is that we have one scheduled meeting throughout the summer and another, if need be. So if it turned out, so it likely would not make July, but it could come back in August at that meeting if we end up holding it, but we would be in touch. Okay? Not working? Okay. It didn't come up on your screen. Okay. And Councillor Bell, did you hear from Councillor Bell? Okay. Councillor Bell, if you're still there?
I think it's there.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. Do you support that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We do.
I mean, you seconded it, so I hope you support it, but I just thought I needed to check for sure for the clerk. Okay, thank you. Okay, and so now the next one that comes up will be the first motion as amended.
The original, yeah.
The original as amended, please.
As amended.
Okay, and Councillor Bell again?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't.
Yeah, as amended, yeah.
We have her everywhere. That's right, now we have to do the same.
Okay.
That's really.
So a shorter version, that motion, of course, carried, and it has been sent back to staff. At the time of the resolution coming forward, way back, Mr. Suze actually had included as part of that another portion. So I'm going to ask Councillor Bradrick to read this resolution, please. It's much shorter.
Yes, moved by myself that the Township of West Lincoln, and I need my glasses. Sorry, of West Lincoln endorse the following private members' bill. Bill C-207, sponsored by MP Rachel Blaney, an act to amend the Canadian Bill of Rights, right to housing, and Bill C-329, sponsored by MP Heather McPherson, an act to establish a national framework respecting attention hyperactivity disorder. Bill 53, sponsored by MPP Butella Karposh.
Butilla.
Thank you. Right to Timely Mental Health and Addiction Care for Children and Youth Act 2022.
Someone to second that, please. Councillor Trombetta, thank you. Okay, so just a few minutes to speak to that so that people know what that's about. Stephen, please.
Absolutely. So I'll start with Butilla's bill. It simply states that children have the right to access to timely care for mental health. Pathstones has a 2.5-year waiting list for children's mental health services. That's an emergency as well. And you know what? They are operating millions of dollars in the red and struggling to provide kids with those services. When they have to worry about they are the only adequate service provider for children's mental health in the region, and when they have to worry about financial costs like that, and they can't worry about the children who are on the wait list because they don't have enough resources, that's something we got to tackle too, because we need more supports for children. I wish someone would have caught my severe mental health when I was 13 years old. Maybe I wouldn't have had to suffer the way I did, but who knows? So then you have Heather McPherson's bill, and it's a national framework for ADHD, which I suffer from. And what it says is that provinces can sign on to this national framework to provide people with support who have ADHD. Do you know there are services for medical services I've reached out to, doctor services, and they say specifically in the notes, we do not deal with ADHD. So Ritalin, which is the medication I need, it's a controlled substance. Big problem. So I can rarely get my medication. So what Heather McPherson's bill is saying is that provinces can provide support for things like this by signing on to the federal framework if they so choose. And so I really, in honor of me, Jason, I don't ask for too much. I don't ask for no paycheck. I don't ask for much. You know me. So in honor of me, I would ask you to endorse MP McPherson's bill tonight, because it's a very important piece of legislation. And just remind me of the other bill.
The third one is Rachel Blaney, an act to amend the Canadian Bill of Rights.
That's Jack Layton's work right there. So you'll know that the Toronto mayor election is today, so that's very interesting. They declared a state of emergency on homelessness. I'd imagine if Jack Layton was here, I would have had a partner in government, in federal government, quite a long time ago, because no matter what party you are, many people thought Jack Layton was very electric, and he was the first one who did a huge push for getting this work acknowledged. So he was, listen, I love you no matter what party you are, conservative, liberal, NDP, PPC, Green. I love this council in their entirety. So, but when someone's got a good idea, they got a good idea, and we should support it. And Jack Layton had a great idea there, and I think it's time to acknowledge it as a right, because we're faced with things like rent evictions, which we can just toss people out on the streets with no remorse. And so sorry for your luck. I think we need to, as a society, acknowledge that housing is a right and then go from there, because it started with acknowledgement with the emergency, and now it's a national human rights movement. So I would ask for immediate support of these important bills, and to forward the correspondence to the appropriate MPs who are sponsoring the bills.
Thank you. So,
sorry for the length again, Mayor Ganan.
That was much shorter, as is the resolution. So any comments or questions for Stephen on these? Okay, so I guess we're ready for a vote then. Seeing nothing? Oh, wait a minute, Councillor Chichok.
Madam Mayor, I just think that there may be some research that our staff will do on this as well, because as Stephen has said, there are, these are specific to some disorders, and I think we could broaden it to say that anyone who suffers mental illness with disorders that are classified within the mental illness range or on the sphere, we would be supportive of. So while that bill C-329 may not have them all, but is better for hyperactivity disorder, we might want to broaden it to something that's more inclusive.
Yeah, you go ahead. We'll come back over.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Ganan, to Councillor I think that we can't really change a private member's bill. Okay, so.
Sorry, might I clarify? We might come back with an endorsement of that private member's bill, but we would like to see an endorsement of that, perhaps when it comes back, when we hear it, but that there are, as soon as we as a municipality start endorsing private members' bills, there'll be people saying, but my child has, and my child has.
Exactly.
So we might be pursuing something that says, and this council pursues the endorsement of future bills. I don't know what we're going to say. I haven't thought about it. It just struck me that there are people out there with children who suffer from a number of issues that a private member's bill we do, but we might want to put something else out there at the same time as we put this out there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bradrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much again, Stephen, for this additional endorsements. Different than the first resolution, for sure, as this are endorsing already existing private members' bills that are going towards their levels of government. Working with the youth and in children's services for over 40 years, I certainly do see the downward slide in available resources to children and their families. And I also do know the importance of the early years and their the critical years that need those supports in order to make the largest gains in people's well-being over the course of their lives. I hope that the rest of the council will also go along with me and endorse as recommended in this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm trying to wrap my head around this a little bit. I'm trying to look at it a little bit differently. I realize it's just an endorsement, but I feel like we're entering into a slippery slope, and let me explain. We're now, what I'm concerned about is what's going to come potentially afterwards. Now, you know, what weight do we hold by endorsing this? You know, it doesn't matter one way or another, but I worry that now that this isn't just an advocacy for a community, but now we're like essentially teaming up with this private member who's bringing this to, I guess in some of these it's one of these Queen's Park, the other one's, you know, Parliament Hill. I worry that we're just entering into an area that's what we weren't elected to weigh in on. We were elected to deal with municipal matters, municipal issues, and I realize there's a little bit of a gray area in this. But what I don't want to see in a situation like this, and I feel like to some extent we can understand that it's pretty, some of these things, you know, especially, you know, the right to housing, a lot of these should just be a natural given. And I get that. But at the same time, I worry that now we're kind of getting into that. Now we're picking whether you intend to or not, you're picking the political sides of that arena that we were never designed to be a part of. No, hold on, Mr. Seuss. So again, this is one of those things where on a personal level, I have no problem endorsing it, but I feel an obligation to the residents who voted for me, who have all different political shades. You know, we are not a party-driven municipal council. So my concern is by supporting this could also be an infringe on someone else's beliefs and someone else's rights. You know, when our job here as municipal leaders is to deal with municipal matters. I certainly don't. I just don't think it's appropriate for us to start weighing in on this, because I can almost assure you within a few months' time someone else is going to have something else that they're going to want this council to backpack on and support that member and support that member, and then where do we end up splitting the hairs? So I'm a little bit apprehensive about this. I don't know how I want to vote just yet, because I do think that this is a slippery slope and that we might be opening Pandora's box here with this moving forward. So
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if I could just reply to your comments, I think that they are accurate for sure. And perhaps it is also similar to the previous resolution where we could take this back to staff and look for some clarity on how we can lobby for those these rights to be, or these issues to be supported within our own community, if applicable through the region of Niagara.
And that probably lifts us out of a political arena and puts us back down into our community arena, which is probably the fairest way to go with some of this. Councillor Chichok.
So if there's no other member of council looking to speak, I would say that I would put my referral motion as for the first motion on this one to refer back to staff and come back.
Okay. So, got that? Okay, so you will, good, okay. Well, I think what that does is removes the political party issue that we've desperately tried to keep out of our community in terms of our local politics. We're not siding, we're looking to whatever portion of this will benefit our community, and I think probably that's our safest way moving forward. Mr. Seuss, I know that you're dying to say something. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I understand all the concerns, but I just want to make Councillor Chichok and Councillor Riley aware that there are multiple national frameworks that are being developed for mental health from all parties. A Conservative senator who reached out to me personally, who I asked to present here tonight, but we had to get him for the next request, Leo Hausakos in Wellington, Quebec. He just got legislation passed that received royal assent for a national framework on autism spectrum disorder. So that's a conservative piece of legislation. So, I mean, you know, I think it is important to support, and I didn't mention political parties when I proposed this motion. I just mentioned the member who was supporting the private members bill, and you'll see in provincial and federal government, multiple people from multiple parties oftentimes endorse each other's legislation. So, and again, West Lincoln, be the loud advocates. You know, when you supported the request, we were advocating, and now I'm asking you to do the same thing. I'm asking you to take my hand, Niagara and West Lincoln, as the whole country watches on.
And we thank you for that. However, what we are very well aware of are the various responsibilities of the different levels of government. And I think what my fellow councillors are trying to say is that we need to be mindful that we have been elected by the people of West Lincoln.
Absolutely.
To do a specific job in governing West Lincoln. They are well aware that Councillor Witteveen and I sit at the region and represent, again, just our municipality at that level as we make decisions moving forward. So it's a little bit of a bottom-up movement that you're asking for, whereas our way of dealing things has been top-down. And I think that you're seeing the comfort level of this council is that we make sure that we're very surely grounded in where we belong and that we are doing what's best for our people. So every single thing that you have presented, I think we have said over and over again, are very worthwhile things that we will investigate further for the benefit of our community. And so we don't want to discourage your efforts, but we do need to maintain our healthy place in our community. So thank you.
To municipalities that really need the emergency, I do say this, and it's part of my favorite song. I sent Mayor Ganan it because I wanted her to listen to it, but it always starts when you're afraid. I was afraid to be an island in 2019 on this state of emergency, and today I stand before you in the national spotlight on this issue. So I do agree with community consultation. I do agree that you were elected to serve West Lincoln constituents, Councillor Riley. You and I go way back. I like I said, I love all of you. I'm supportive of this, of helping you build the process. I have no problem being your consultant because I've been so for so long. You know, I kind of help everybody out. That's what I do, you know. I think it's the obligation of Indigenous people to, like I said, to defend all Canadians who are suffering from these issues. And I thank you for your indulgence tonight. And I especially thank Mayor Ganan for all the leeway she's given Stephen Seuss tonight, because it's quite a lot.
I'm glad you acknowledge that, but you're welcome. So, Madam Clerk, do we have this new amendment that we can vote on?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do, and I will bring it up on the screen for everybody. Through you, Madam Mayor, to members of council, I do want to correct myself. I said carried as amended before. I meant to say referred. So you have a referral motion. So just to let everybody know, it is in the minutes, but I just wanted to clarify that I did say carried as amended, but it's a referral motion. So
okay, thank you.
Just to clarify that again, so I will bring up the referral motion, and then we'll go back to the original. And I believe, sorry, it was moved by Councillor Chichok and seconded by Councillor Broderick?
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Technology. Okay. So, Councillor Bell, are you fine with this being amended? And
Yes.
referred back? Okay, thank you, okay. And the second one then will be the original? Yeah, we have to do.
say referred.
It will say referred, yeah. Okay, yeah. And so again, the clerk is asking, Councillor Bell, are you in favor or against this?
In favor.
Thank you. Okay. You did? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was just, we were just waiting for Councillor Bell. Yeah, so that's, that also carries and the referral will take place. So, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so. So we I think we're going to have a short recess because we've lost the male members of our group. Okay. Councillor Whittabine, we're going to be... Okay, so we're back after a quick recess and a very long session with our guests. However, Regional Councillor Whittabine, it's time for your remarks, please.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, members of Council, staff, members of the public. I'd like to start by sharing a field day for the hazelnut growers at our nutty neighbor here in West Lincoln. This farm is owned and operated by the Pelot family on Port Davison Road. This event will take place on Saturday, July the 15th from 11 to 2. They have 10 acres of orchard planting, and if you know anyone is interested in this crop, let them know the day and the location of the event. I attended a Silverdale barbecue in which funds were raised for the maintenance and upkeep of the hall. On June the 11th, or 10th, sorry, I was invited to the gala dinner at Robert Land Academy in which we honored Christine Elliott for her years of service as the Minister of Health. At our committee meetings this past month at Public Works, we dealt with a couple capital works projects that were needed for approval of the committee. So I asked how projects were coming in on projected budget through these inflationary times. And staff were happy to report that the projects were in on target and our bidder numbers were lower. 3 to 5 quotes were normal in the past, and now we're seeing around 3 contractors bidding on capital projects, and we still believe that this is still a competitive number and taxpayers are receiving value for service. Later that day, I attended the Public Health and Community Services meeting, which we discussed the progress of our 2 long-term care builds. We're glad to hear that the projects are on schedule and to be completed in the time stated. Interesting that this bill allowed us to review all aspects of care and operations of these 2 165-bed facilities. Many changes came from what we learned through the pandemic in giving residents the best end-of-life care. The timing of these 2 projects will favor our residents in the future because of the new operations and build design. So both Lynnhaven and Gilmore Lodge, as I've stated in the past, will be completed in the fall of 2024. And as most of you know, the Niagara region received top-up funds to help out the extra demand in community service. As Stephen mentioned this evening, we discussed allocation of the funds to shore up underfunded programs such as homelessness services, an examination of shelter capacity with 2 new shelters, one in St. Catharines, the other in Niagara Falls. Presently, our shelter capacity in Niagara is 292 beds, and those 95 that are seasonal. And so we'll receive a update on the cost of services also from our cross-border refugees in July at our Health and Community Service meeting, which has put a fair bit of strain on our staff because the last number count, I believe, was 2,000 cross-border refugees that were residing in Niagara Falls. So we're interested to measure that cost so that we will probably be requesting funding assistance from the federal government since that is their jurisdiction. So the following day, I attended the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting where we had a presentation on the Niagara region supporting the Niagara Irrigation Initiative presented by Debbie Zimmerman, Chair of the Grape Growers, and Sarah Marshall, the General Manager of the Tender Fruit. They stated the importance of water as infrastructure to the farmers here in Niagara, and the Niagara region has been highly supportive in this project with coordinating staff in mapping, but now we need support for our RFP for the design of a system that will reveal the cost of such a program. I've been involved in this project with other stakeholders in the region, and this process, we are pleased in the progress that we have made to date. This will be a huge economic value for Niagara as we move this project forward. And last and quick update on the automated speed enforcement here in Smithville, as I see some things coming up on social media. These are inter-community safety zones. The rollout goes like this. First location will be Station Street between Spring Creek and West Street starting in September of this year, and it will be in place for 90 days. And the second location will be Town Line between Harvest Gate and Canberra Road. So this is the end of my report of June. Any council members have any questions, I will answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So questions? Councillor Riley?
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Witteveen, for your report. I guess the question I have, you might have mentioned this before, I might have read this before, but I just wanted to clarify. And hearing some of the other rumors regarding the speed cameras there, is it, I guess I don't even know if it's public knowledge, but I'm going to ask anyways. There was some speculation around, or at least some information around, when they first installed, is there a grace period of where the tickets are going to be warnings, or is it just immediately the day it's activated, the first ticket goes out, it's payable?
I believe that there is a short grace period where you will be issued a warning ticket as part of the program. This is, as some have alluded, it's you know, a money grab, and it's not. It's just to reprogram people to be mindful in the community safety zones, to slow down. So I believe there's like a 30-day time period where you will be issued we'll call it a nice warning without a monetary fine.
Okay, and I thought it was a 30-day, I just wasn't sure, and I didn't want to throw that out there in case that's wrong. I guess the other question I have, and it might have been answered before, but I got asked the other day, I was like, I should have reached out to you actually. Is it a situation where if someone's doing a 52 and a 50, it's just a flat ticket? Is there a grace within the limit, especially in that process? Or is it that you have to be doing 50 or below? I'm just using 50 as an example, but I was just curious how much you knew about the actual ticketing process.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there's about a 10-kilometer grace.
Okay, so give or take a few.
I think it's not one over, and you will receive a fine. Everybody understands that there is a bit of flexibility. It's just if you're going from an 80 and you're still continuing as 80 through that zone, that's unsafe.
Yes.
And it will be. This is a pilot, so yes. I'm sure there will be some learning along the way, and adjustments will be made accordingly.
Okay, perfect. And I appreciate that information. Obviously, we'll see how that turns out, and hopefully it actually does what it needs to do. And I think, for those who are driving aggressively and at high speeds in some of these smaller roads, like it's going to hit the pocketbook. So I think it's going to change the driver behavior as expected. So thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Witteveen. I think that's it. I don't see any further questions, so thank you for that. So next on number 9 is confirmation of the minutes, the regular minutes of council from May 23rd. And Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution? Very short. Page 4, if you have the agenda printed out.
Just moved by myself at the minute. Moved by myself that the minutes of May 23rd, 2023 regular council meeting be accepted.
Thank you. And someone to second those minutes, please? Councillor Riley, thank you. And when our clerk is ready, we'll vote on those minutes unless somebody has a question or comment. Councillor Chichok.
This is the one where I had an issue, and it's just a spelling error that I want to bring to the attention.
Okay.
Because they didn't make mad cookies.
You did not?
I didn't. It was about the cookies at Tim Hortons, and now it's lost my highlighting. But
okay. So we will get the clerk to go look back over those and make sure that the official
They weren't
minutes.
mad cookies. They might have been bad, and they might have been sad because the way I was putting the icing on, but it
But
wasn't.
they definitely, okay, good enough. Okay, so when you're ready. Well, that proves that you've read them. That's always good. Okay, so we won't ask Councillor Bell to vote on those since he wasn't at that meeting. Is that correct? Okay, so good. All right. So item number 10 are communications. 10.1 is Karen Usick, Hepatitis C Care Clinic, Community Coordinator, Niagara Health System Addiction Services. And it's re-support to declare July 28th World Hepatitis Day in the Township of West Lincoln. And Councillor Riley, you have that resolution, please?
I do. I guess moved by myself, whereas approximately 204,000 Canadians are living with hepatitis C and over 250,000 people are living with hepatitis B. Whereas people living with hepatitis B and C have an increased risk of developing cirrhosis, liver failure, and related illnesses, whereas Ontario has over 110,000 people living with hepatitis B or C, both of which are slow and progressive diseases, and whereas there are vaccines available for hepatitis A and B, effective hepatitis C treatment therapies can cure over 95% of cases, and whereas World Hepatitis Day provides an opportunity to reach out to millions of Canadians, encourage hepatitis testing, provide treatment, and care for those affected while paving the way towards elimination of hepatitis as a public health concern in Canada by 2030. Therefore, the Council of the Township of West Lincoln hereby declares July 28, 2023 World Hepatitis Day in West Lincoln, and that Mayor Ganam be and is hereby authorized to forward correspondence to the Niagara Health System Addiction Services advising of our support.
Thank you. So someone to second that resolution, please? Councillor Chichok, thank you. Any discussion or questions about that? It was simply a request that we declare, and that's not something we've been in the habit of doing, so this was the way to do that, publicly promote support to residents and people living with that disease, and just show that we are supportive of that. So when our clerk is ready, we'll vote on that resolution. And Councillor Bell, I will ask you about your vote on that, please.
Support.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. That resolution carries. And 10.2 is Tom Jacobs Rocket. Excuse me? Okay. Tom Jacobs Rocket Fireworks Inc. Request for fireworks display at 2433 Port Davidson Road, August 19th, 2023. And Councillor Trombetta, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the request received from Tom Jacobs for rocket fireworks to host a fireworks display on August 19, 2023 at 2433 Port Davidson Road, Smithville be approved. And I have a follow-up question, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And someone to second that resolution, get on the floor, please. Councillor Broderick, thank you. And Councillor Trombetta, back to you, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not opposed to the fireworks, but I know the directors all left, and I wish they were here because I had a question for Tim Hofsink. Now that, so I have to direct it to you, Madam CAO, as we let them.
Yeah.
I know that, you know, raging fires are going, and you know they're trying to watch what I know the fire ban has been lifted, but I just want to know, are there any precautions that have to be done now to have these sort of things as we get into August? You know, we might go into a dry spell again. What happens in that case? If you can.
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. So the fire chiefs meet very regularly. They talk about the conditions and then they make a call. But I don't know what they do about looking forward. So perhaps if you do the approval, then maybe
Because I don't want to
you
say
could do
council
conditionally,
approved it and then all of a sudden
Okay.
Tim canceled it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we're stuck in the middle. So I don't know what the protocol is on the fire chief when it comes to this as we move forward in August.
the fire, if there were a fire ban in place, I don't believe they could be lighting fireworks.
So they will
So
be
this
aware
should
of that?
be, no, I think we should be responding to say pending, that there is no fire ban in place.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So, so back to that, so
I hope he-
to our clerk, is that something that we would be able to assume? That would be, that obviously a fire ban takes precedence over absolutely everything. So does that need to be explicit in this motion?
I think it should be.
Okay, and I think that would be my thought. So if we can
Sure.
we have a friendly amendment added to that, if Councillor Trombetta and Braderick are fine, that we say subject to fire ban approval, or approval by the fire chief, based on fire ban?
I think Councillor Bell has got his hand
Yeah,
up as
just
well.
1 second, we'll get to that, thank you.
Pending, no fire ban is in place.
Okay, that would be sufficient. Councillor Bell, thank you.
Yeah, I think it should be pending approval by fire chief. He should have the last say. I understand what you're saying about a fire ban and stuff. I agree 100%. But I think, unfortunately, Tim's left for the night, but he should have the last say. We'll pass it. I don't have an issue doing that. But he'll get the last say if he don't believe that it should take place. He has the right to override us and cancel that.
Yeah, well, and just if I could speak too, I tend to agree for two reasons. One, the fire ban issue, and by August it could be very dry. The second is wind conditions, which also makes a difference. So, so fire ban and wind conditions approval by the fire chief or something, something that pulls that together, I think would cover that, because sometimes, you know.
So you're basically saying council's okay as long as it's safe, and the fire chief would determine that.
Councillor Ryder.
I guess my question is, and just to add to that, I fully agree with Councillor Bell. I think, having our chief review this location, just in a simple, like, Google Street View, there is quite a few trees, there's a pond there as well, and so there's obviously space for them to maneuver, but, given the situation, I think they need to be clearly informed, if it's not already done in the process, that this could be revoked within the 11th hour should the fire chief.
Yeah, I do believe that that's part of the process to get it to this
Okay.
point.
But
All of those things have been looked at, all of the measurements have been done and
But it would be
taken.
devastating if they
But
accidentally set this area on
it
fire,
is-
because there's
it
a
is-
lot
yeah.
of, protected forested
Yeah,
area.
it is actually
there.
the last minute kinds of conditions that I think Councillor Trombetta was concerned about.
Yeah, those are my concerns. I think, if someone's doing this sort of display, I'm quite sure a deposit or something is probably, they had to probably provide a deposit to have them secured for that day. I think they need to be notified that, it might not happen, so just be sure that, you're able to, I think they need to be notified after this meeting that at any point it could be canceled due to a fire ban, right? And it won't be because council supports this in its entirety, it won't be up to us, so.
Yeah.
But I do think maybe members of staff should reach out to this individual who's doing it and say, just be prepared. We don't know what's going to be in store
What
in
the
the month of
circumstances will
August.
be at that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
That's all.
Okay, anything further before? Okay, so now, Madam Clerk, please tell us what you have, yes. Pending weather conditions and approval by, yeah.
Shouldn't come from council dealing about weather. No, that would be.
Well, weather means wind and fire conditions, I would think, too dry, but I think we do need to have in approval by the fire chief, last minute approval, or,
Final approval.
Let's be clear. So the application is from Rocket Fireworks Inc., which will have a strict policy, if I'm not mistaken, on what conditions they can go in. Because I just know with
Absolutely.
other events I've been a part of, there's usually a lot of underwriting because they don't want the liability themselves. So I feel like that part, I'm comfortable with the fire chief having the final say. He knows what's best, and we go from there. I'm not too worried about anything else there because these guys are going to absorb the entire liability if something goes
yeah.
wrong.
And if you look through your entirety, all of the various things that were there, you can see that the property boundaries laid out, the location of fire, I mean, they've had to do all of that work. So our concern is not that this prep work has all been done, that all looks good, and we're fine with that at this point, but we are concerned about the day of, right? I think that's, which is why we're pulling in the fire chief. So do you have some appropriate wording for that?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I was just looking at the bylaw to see if it had anything with respect to weather, but I can't really quickly do this. So, let me pull that up.
They want pending final approval by the fire chief on the day of. And then Tim will know, or Dennis, if he happens to be back, will know that we are behind them if they have to cancel, you know, behind whoever makes that decision because of the fire ban or whatever, so. Yes, you may, yeah, for sure. And that way, that's done. Yep. Okay, open it, please. Okay, the vote should be there shortly. You will notice that we now have acting fire chief or designate on the day of the event, which covers what we were concerned about. Yeah. And Councillor Bell, are you fine with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, and that resolution carries. So I apologize for the length of this meeting, but I am still going to do my mayor's remarks. And so I'll speed read if possible. So since our last council meeting on May 23rd, we've had 3 different flag raising ceremonies. The first being the Pride flag raised on May 29th in honor of Niagara's Pride Week. The second, the JAAC flag on June 5th, supporting and acknowledging those with disabilities. And the final being the Age Friendly Advisory Committee flag in celebration of June also being Seniors Month. So thanks to members of these various committees, associated staff, and members of the public who were able to attend any of these opportunities to celebrate various aspects of our community life. The morning of June 26th, CAO Bev Hendry, Director of Planning Brian Trevo, Planning Committee Chair William Riley, and I met. And I think that should have said May, not June, because we haven't had that yet. And I met in MPP Oosterhoff's office to discuss our concerns regarding the lack of building starts within our current urban boundary and our position regarding our urban boundary expansion plans as West Lincoln attempts to be able to respond to the province's housing direction. Friday, June 2nd was particularly busy as I, along with MPP Oosterhoff, attended a photo opportunity request from our local Royal Canadian Legion Branch 393 as part of their Trillium grant funding obligation. The great news is that our local Legion received 1 grant that enabled them to modernize their kitchen facilities and another to pave the driveway for better accessibility. They required public confirmation of such so as to receive the rest of their grant funding in order to make an accessible washroom renovation as well. I also represented West Lincoln at Niagara College at a Geopark presentation and celebration of how far things have come with that project. Members of council may remember when that committee came to us several years ago with their quest to make Niagara a UNESCO Geopark area. That work has continued over the past years, and they now have funding, many of their designated areas worked out, and are ready to submit, likely in the fall of 2023, for this designation. I also attended the Caster Fun Fair that same night and the Historical Society Open House the following Saturday morning. Both were very successful events. June 8th, I was invited by the host school, Blessed Trinity, which of course our local Catholic high school students attend, to say on behalf of our municipality a few words of welcome to the top 20 girls soccer teams and their coaches from across the province, who were all in our area for their championship tournament. It was such a pleasure to have been able to take part in this. I will say I've never seen a room full of close to 500 kids wearing dress-up clothes and running shoes. It was quite the sight. June 9th was, of course, the always successful Silverdale Barbecue that John and I have been helping with for close to 20 years, and Councillor Chichok was also in attendance as a volunteer. June 10th, Councillor Chichok and John and I were pleased to attend the Robert Land Academy fundraising gala. Robert Land Academy, although a private school, is located in Ward 2 of our municipality. This event was also attended by Provincial Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones, who presented an award to former Health Minister Christine Elliott for her guidance and support of the province throughout the pandemic in particular. Of course, MPP Osterhoff and his wife Carrie were also in attendance, as was Regional Council Witteveen, as he's already stated. This past week has also been a little busy in that I attended the Chamber of Commerce breakfast on Tuesday, and later that afternoon a Zoom meeting with Mayors Jordan and Easton. On Wednesday, I was honored to attend the 40th anniversary AGM of the Employment Help Centre, a board in which Councillor Ravi represents our interests very well. On Thursday, John and I were pleased to host and personally finance a surprise lunch barbecue in our backyard for our retiring clerk, Joanne Shime, which was attended by approximately 42 or 43 staff and council members. And then later that evening, we attended a retirement gathering at the Christian High School in honor of Principal Ted Harris and 2 other staff members who were leaving. Friday morning, I was honored to have a breakfast meeting in West Lincoln with Regional Commissioner of Corporate Services and Treasurer Todd Harrison to discuss various issues related to the upcoming regional budget, the overall budget process, and just where West Lincoln fits in the queue of the 500-plus regional projects under consideration yearly. I also attended a provincial announcement regarding an addition of provincial funding to McNally House for their operations, as well as the extension from 6 to 10 beds. Saturday, I was honored once again to represent West Lincoln at the Robert Land graduation and end-of-year parade. I personally got to know many of this year's graduates as they volunteered in our community in various ways, including the Kiwanis Bottle Drive and the community-wide food drive for West Lincoln Community Care. The summer of 2023 edition of the Club West magazine that you had in front of you, some of you wondered why it was there. It came out recently, and it was lovely to see that the Chichok family, Anne-Marie especially, was featured for the great work that she has been doing in 4-H for decades. When we think of 4-H, the general public thinks of their fantastic milkshakes and pea meal bacon on a bun. However, the article aptly points out that the main long-lasting benefit of 4-H is that these stellar leaders are building the leaders of the future. To quote the article, they learn to do by doing. That approach gives them, meaning the 9 to 21-year-olds who are involved, a place where they can be involved, accepted, valued, and heard while developing valuable leadership and life skills. So congratulations to all of the Chichok family, including our councillor, Joanne Chichok, on this public recognition of your contributions, and thank you for your continued involvement in this important work in our community. Winding down the month of June, I will again represent West Lincoln on Tuesday evening at the West Niagara Secondary School graduation, and along with our CAO and Councillor Chichok, will attend Wednesday the AGM of the Grand Erie Business Centre, which of course services West Lincoln businesses as well as those in Haldimand County. Thursday morning in our council chambers, MP Dean Allison and I will present a Canada Cord to a small group of local Pathfinders. These girls have earned this particular high honor in guiding through the completion of the necessary badge work. Many Pathfinders do not ever achieve the level of Canada Cord, and it's appropriate that they will do so just before Canada Day. And I'm happy that they're doing that in our council chambers. And that brings us to Canada Day activities in West Lincoln. I'm looking forward to seeing many residents and visitors at this upcoming celebration of our country to be held at the Leisureplex this Saturday, July 1st, beginning around 3 in the afternoon and ending with a fantastic fireworks display sometime after dusk. So thanks to staff in advance for all of the time and effort that has been put into the plans for this local celebration. It should be a fantastic day, weather permitting, another weather permitting thing, so thank you. So moving on to reports of committee. Councillor Riley, you have the Planning, Building and Environmental Committee
I do.
Minutes from June 12th.
Yes, moved by myself that the minutes of the open session portion of the June 12th, 2023 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the following exceptions, currently none, or following exception of items, and that confidential minutes related relating to the closed session portion of the June 12, 2023 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Okay, thank you. Someone to second those minutes, please? Councillor Chichok, thank you. And any questions or comments about those? Okay. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, when you're ready. Okay, thank you. And Administration, Finance, and Fire Committee minutes, Councillor Trombetta, you have the, oh, sorry. No, do you, when he wasn't there? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes of the open session portion of June 19, 2023 Administration, Fire, Finance Committee meeting be accepted and the recommendations contained thereon be approved. Sorry, this came up. It's okay. Be approved and with exceptions, and I'm not seeing any, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the June 19, 2023 Administration, Finance, Fire Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. And someone to second those, please? Councillor Chichok, thank you. Any questions or comments about anything there? Okay, Madam Clerk, when you're ready. Okay, and that resolution carries. And 12.3, that brings us to Public Works, Recreation, Arena Committee. The minutes of June 19th, and Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution, please?
That the minutes of the open session portion of the June 19, 2023 Public Works and Recreation Committee meeting be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exceptions, and there are none at this time.
Thank you. And someone to second that? Councillor Bradrick, thank you. Any questions or comments about anything there? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, when you're ready. Okay. So that resolution also carries. We have nothing for reconsideration tonight and nothing to be rescinded. And we've already dealt with 15.1, which brings us then to 15.2. Manager of Finance, Deputy Treasurer Caitlin Hall, and Director of Finance, Treasurer Donna DeFilippis. And it is recommendation report T-16-2023 draft audited financial statements and audit findings for the year end 2022. So you do have that. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, sure. I didn't know.
You were
Sorry.
eager. Thank you.
Moved by myself that the recommendation report T-16-2023 regarding the draft financial statements and audit findings for the year ending 2022 dated June 26, 2023 be received, and that the 2022 draft audit financial statements attached as Appendix A to this report be approved, and that the 2022 audit findings report attached as Appendix B to the report be received.
Thank you. So someone to second that, please. Councillor Bradrick. Thank you. Okay. So are there any questions or comments? Our director is here if you have a concern or something to ask her about this. Councillor Chichok.
Great job. Thank you so much, through you, Madam Mayor, to our staff.
There you go. Good comment. You've been sitting through this whole evening waiting for that, but at least you got a pat on the back. Are there any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Donna, for your patience and endurance.
Through you, Mayor Ganad, I just want to acknowledge Caitlin Hall because she does lead the audit. I work on the budget side. She leads the audit and the financial reporting. So I'd just like to acknowledge her.
Thank you. Thank you. Please pass that, the accolades that were received, back to Caitlin. Councillor Rayner.
Yes, through to you, to Donna. She deserves the accolades, but you deserve the medal tonight.
Oh, dear. Okay, let's move on with open the vote, please. Okay, so Councillor Bell, this time we do need you to vote, please.
In favor.
Thank you. Okay, and that resolution carries. So we continue to carry the tabled item, and 15.4 is members of council and their remarks. So, Councillor Rayner, I'll start with you. Is there anything you'd like to report on tonight? Thank you. Councillor Chichok, anything?
I think it's been covered, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just mentioned, you kind of covered a couple things I was going to talk about. So I was able to also attend the Smithfield Public School Fun Fair, and I just wanted to wish everyone a good summer. I know we got at least one meeting in the summer there, but in case we don't see as regularly as we've seen you through the other 10 months of the year, have a great, safe summer, and see you guys at sometime end of July.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Turnbull, anything?
Nothing much, just that, you know, it's the end of the school year, kids are getting out, a lot of graduations going on. Drove by Councillor Rayner, Keister Center, Keister Gate, well, Keister.
Yeah.
I call it Keister Center. What's the proper pronunciation? Keister.
It's Keister Central.
Keister Central.
Yeah,
Always call it Keister Center School for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's always been Keister Central School.
Yeah.
Looked like they had a packed parking lot with all the street, and obviously Smithville here is got all the graduations. We had myself and Councillor Chichuk attended St. Martin's last week. The graduations, they actually have came a long way on how they present now, and it's a big occasion now where you know, I graduated to, you know, they were trying to kind of get me out of school and move me along.
Now they're celebrating those students?
Yeah, but you know, they do a lot of work, and the students, you see how academically they've came along, and it just it's really good to see. So again, that was I guess a part of us from last week and this week. So yeah, enjoy the summer. People taking vacations, and enjoy the summer for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bradrick.
Just one comment. So continuing to lobby for childcare services in our community. The region of Niagara is still pending a report to establish their priorities for the region of Niagara as far as funding dollars are concerned. Hamilton has released those, so we can hope that the region of Niagara will be soon to follow. That will establish what will be determined as childcare deserts in the region of Niagara, which will then help the region to focus their funding. Continuing to lobby with the Director of Children's Services in Niagara to remember us out here, and that their data that they're collecting may not be accurate because we don't have licensed childcare spaces necessarily for people to put their children's names on waiting lists for. So just continuing to push that message forward.
Good. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Madam CAO, anything further you want to say?
No, thank you.
Okay. So I am going to reserve coming back at the very end after bylaws. So unless there are any new items of business that anybody wants to bring forward, we'll move to Councillor Chichok with the bylaws, please.
Moved by myself that leave be granted to introduce bylaws number 2023-39, 40, 2023-41, 2023-42, 2023-43, 2023-44, 2023-45, 2023-46, 2023-47, 2023-48, 2023-49, 2023-50, and 2023-51, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading, and hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. That's it.
Okay, and thank you for that. But the clerk just pointed out that there did not end up being a 2023-51.
Yes, I was just going to ask that.
So, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
There isn't one?
There is not one.
Oh, that's not.
No, there is not one. So, so our clerk just quickly eliminated that one. So, someone to second the bylaws, please? Councillor Rayner, we'll get you in here. Okay. And the vote will come up. Okay, so Councillor Bell, you are able to vote on the bylaws, please?
In favor?
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I hit yes, I didn't hit submit, sorry.
Okay, and that resolution carries as well. And there are no confidential matters tonight, but before I adjourn the meeting, I just want to point out that our brand-new, appointed by bylaw, Director of Legislative Services / clerk has just completed her first official meeting, and it was a doozy. So congratulations, Jessica. And somebody told us that you were, thought that it was really good that Joanne got fudge at one of hers. And so we also have from council a little gift to celebrate your first meeting. And now I will adjourn this meeting at 9:31.
So you get to put all of them now? All three?
Well, it's timing, because we only have one in July. So if it wasn't,
I'm done planning on something.
and you know